How do you build an empire? You don't start with glass and steel and concrete. You start with a single brick. Laid side by side together, they become something much bigger. These bricks are a part of history. The people who set them into the earth were building more than just a racetrack. They were building a legacy. They were building memories. They were building dreams. As decades passed, a kingdom rose around this 2.5-mile ribbon of asphalt. It became an international icon. Lives were made here, and lives were lost here, in a pursuit of eternal glory. No one has to say why this place is special. It just is. And though over the years the pavement between these walls has been paved time and time again, there is still a stretch of bricks by the finish line to remind us all that great things come from humble beginnings.
The time has come for the end of the season for the 2022 Indy Elite Series. While the month of May signifies a portion of the season closer to the start in IndyCar, for these 33 drivers, it's the tail end of April that signals the arrival of the biggest race of the year. This is the 7th annual Indy Elite Series Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. 200 laps at the Brickyard. Hi everybody, Kyle Heyer joined by Finian DeCuna and by Adam Crane. Finian, welcome aboard. 200 laps around one of the most famous racetracks on planet Earth.
Absolutely. A lot of these guys have been looking for this race all season long, just for this attempt at this race. Again, this is the 7th annual running of this event. All 200 laps, all 500 miles. It's going to be a long race for these guys up ahead, but it's all for fame and glory.
And we've got Adam Crane joining us here at the booth tonight. Adam, welcome aboard. This is the biggest race of the season. Everybody wants to win at Indianapolis.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be in booth with you for the call. And absolutely, this is some of the best IndyCar drivers on the entire iRacing platform. So definitely the Indy Elite 500 is one of the stable events for the calendar. And it's one of the events that everyone gets up for. So it's super awesome to watch these drivers running tonight and to be part of the broadcast with you boys.
Well, this race is 200 laps long. It's some of the fastest racing we see here on Sim TV. One of the only full distance races we do here as well. So looking forward to the kickoff of the season finale here for the Indy Elite Series. We'll go over points, we'll go over the scenario and the starting grid right after opening ceremonies here from Indianapolis.
home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores. For me, the new mown hay sends out its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Time to go racing here from Indianapolis. 200 laps, 500 miles from one of the most famous racetracks on planet Earth. Welcome back again to Sim TV. Again, Kyle Heyer, Finney DeCuna, and Adam Crane bringing you the action as the field gets prepped to go. We're going to bring you the starting lineup here in just a moment's time. But before we do that, have a look at the beautiful weather here today on the right side of the screen. 76 in the air, 95 degrees in the Fahrenheit, Finney, and it's not the hottest it could be, but it's certainly not cool out there either.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see how these guys are going to have these cars set up for handling, because, again, once these guys get out on the track, it's going to be they're pretty much going to be out there and can only make a few adjustments to the car, so I hope they definitely figured out their setups by now. I mean, speaking of the setups, remember last year, for the Indy 500, we saw that Riley Thompson, if I'm not mistaken, came in. He was just using the iRacing baseline setup, and he's managing to compete with these guys out here, and he was running really well towards the end of that race. Curious to see anyone else here running the baseline setup, or if some other guys have got some good concoction to the table.
Well, 32 cars set to go racing here tonight at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's begin rolling through the starting lineup here, Finian, because we've got 16 rows of cars to roll through. On pole position, the fastest man at Indianapolis, it's going to be Jason Brophy in the number 88. He will start on the front row alongside Alexis Newsom in the number 63 car. She will roll off P2 as we get rolling on our pace lap. In row number 2, it's going to be Austin Espedy in the number 7, and Andreas Eich will roll off 4th in the number 76.
Rolling off 5th will be Robert Malechka. Next to him, Jacob Oster. In behind them, Joshua Chin, Alexander Van Nysand.
Starting in row number 5 will be Adriano Pinheiro in the number 56. Already has a couple wins to his name this season. Liam Quinn rolls off 10th in the number 44. Row 6, Andrew Wood in the number 64, and he'll be joined by Chris Cahill in the number 57 in 12th.
David Adams going to be rolling off 13th with Brian Carey next to him in 14th. Christopher back in 15th. Matt Hollabaugh lined up in 16th.
In 17th place, it'll be Tony Schowen in the number 31. He'll start alongside Joe Branch in the number 28, back in 18th spot. Then behind them, Evan Adams in the number 59. Mitch Welker rolls off 20th in the number 16.
Back in 24th is Mitch Kitchell in the 04s. We line up on the inside. John Downing next to him in 22nd. AJ Musselman going to be lined up in 23rd. Marshall Stanley next to him in 24th.
In 25th place, it'll be Flynn Lazier in the number 3 and Craig Forsyth in the number 27. He'll start in 26th. 27th to 28th, Alex Ball in the number 12 and Wayne Hunter in the number 82.
Next then we got Doug South in 29th. Dan Edge next to him in the 52. Aaron Rusk lined up in the final row on the inside in 31st, and Matt Houston rounding out your field of 22 cars in 32nd.
Well, it's going to be a good one here tonight. That is your entire field here for the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. Some footage to show you later of Catalyst 317's work. But 200 laps. We're going to get into it a little bit with Adam Crane here in a bit once we go green. He'll be joining us in the booth here tonight. Brophy, Newsom on that front row in the number 88 and 63. Standard iRacing start here, 2 abreast as we come out of turn number 4 and head towards the start-finish line. The flag is in the hands of the starter. 200 laps, 500 miles, the 7th annual Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. Green flag flies, and we're racing at Indy. Into turn 3, Jason Brophy will lose the lead to Austin Espedy in the number 7. He takes the top spot into the 4th corner now. Newsom a little bit high. They're all stacked up behind Andreas Ike in the 76, back and forth. Lap 1 is complete. Espedy in the number 7 is the man on top, Finian.
Yeah, and Jason Brophy immediately going to be wasting no time going back to the bottom. We're going to see this swapping back and forth all race long. This is going to be taking the season again. We got 200 laps on tap. A lot of time to work with, so you guys are going to be, if anything, just experimenting, running around different lines, seeing how the car is handling, especially in these track conditions. Because, again, these guys had an idea of around what the track conditions were going to be with the track temp, overcast conditions, but now is it real? Now it's real. Now it's going to be exactly the time the conditions they're going to have to deal with when you're running a little bit high in 3.
And Adam, of course, we've got about 30 lap runs here on the fuel, but talk to me a little bit about the setup in these cars and how much time drivers and teams spent getting these cars set up for the action today, and how much will they be adjusting throughout the afternoon?
So a lot of these teams would have spent quite a bit of time developing a really solid baseline set that they could use to help prepare themselves for the Open iRacing Indy 500, which will be in about 3 weeks here. But this is a great race that everyone will have really solid baseline sets.
Trouble, turn 2. Sorry, Chris Stouffer around at the exit of turn number 2. His Indy 500 is over almost before it started, and he will be done for the day. That is a massive hit. Here's a look at it as he rolls through turn 2. This might have been self-inflicted. Just real tight out of turn 2, clips the fence, and that's game over, Finian.
Oh, yeah, and a hard look in the barrier. I mean, yeah, he just miscalculated coming off of turn 2. Been seeing a lot of these guys running a little bit on the tighter side. They've been getting awfully close to the exit walls, especially off of turn 2, from what I noticed. And again, I think just underestimated the understeer due to the wash in behind the other cars, and unfortunately ended up in the wall, so already one down.
Yeah, that's one of the things with the setups of these cars at the initial point of the run. You generally have a little bit lower rear tire pressure, or right rear tire pressure, just to make sure that once the pressures come up, you have enough rotation at the rear. So a lot of these cars will start off with a little bit higher right front tire pressure, and it's really easy to understeer off the road, especially turn 2. Pop yourself into the wall and end your day really early.
And already an early ending for Chris Stouffer in that number 13 car. Brophy and Espedy have been trading spots back and forth. You saw them come across the start-finish line 220-plus miles an hour. Here's Chris Cahill in the 57. He is on the outside in that yellow and red car. Right behind him, Andrew Wood in the number 64. It's been a good season for Andrew Wood here, Finian. Let's get into the points scenario here just a little bit. As we continue to race here, this is an important round because this is the final round in our championship season. We don't race anymore after this. This is where we're going to decide our champion on top of deciding the Indy 500 winner. So coming into the night, Andreas Ike is the man to beat, but Andrew Wood's 4th, 100 points back. He's chasing Chris Stouffer, who just had that crash.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's definitely going to help out Andrew Wood to secure a 3rd place in the standings. But I think really, I mean, obviously the main battle we're going to be looking at between these guys is going to be Andreas Ike versus Robert Malechko, which has been the storyline coming into these final few rounds. Currently, Ike in 4th place ahead of Robert Malechko. Malechko 15 points in behind. There are more points on tap for these guys here tonight, but if Ike finishes ahead, he's definitely going to be securing that championship.
Brophy and Espedy nose to tail as they exit turn number 4. These two have just been trading spots back and forth. I think we're going to see a lot of this kind of, I guess, what would you call this, Adam? Kind of piggybacking off of each other, just drafting back and forth, switching back. We see this a lot. We're going to have a lot of lead changes by the end of this race.
Absolutely. The swap draft at Indy in the IndyCar is quite powerful and helps to really just stretch out the rest of the pack. You end up doing a little bit of fuel saving too, which really helps extend the stints. But essentially what you're just trying to do is just trying to build a gap to all the cars behind by just pushing the pace and making everyone who doesn't necessarily have as good of a setup or isn't necessarily tuned to the conditions, just trying to make them really work hard in order to try to keep up and maybe burn a little bit more fuel trying to get up close to you.
And fuel burn is going to be a topic of discussion all day long. And these long green flag runs, Finian, staying in the draft is certainly going to be an advantage. And if you can stay out a couple extra laps, and we know how different these Indy cars burn fuel when they're out front versus in the draft, so that'll be something we'll follow all day long from a strategy perspective. We're expecting about 30 lap runs, but I think we could see less than that or more than that depending on where you are in that draft.
Yeah, it really does depend, as you mentioned, if you're in behind guys, if you're constantly lifting into some of these corners, or if you're pushing the envelope and just trying to push the car in general and pushing away out the order, you're going to be a lot more aggressive. maybe letting off throttle a lot less. So it could vary by a few laps. And again, if we go green for a long time, which I kind of expect at this point, we're looking pretty set in stone, feel looking relatively spread out. So we'll see how we go. But by the end, you could see guys with fuel strategies different by a couple laps, depending on when they decide to come in. Of course, everyone's more or less kind of trying to calculate out their fuel numbers, should have an idea of where they need to be, how much they need to save if they want to make it to the end. But again, with such a long race, any caution here, there's going to completely throw the strategy out the window. They're going to have to start all over again.
Noticed a lot of drivers kind of running up the racetrack. Pinheiro with the number 56 is one that I saw in particular. Adam, how much do drivers experiment with different lanes? I mean, it seems like Indy has always been sort of a one-groove racetrack, but we've seen more than one driver up the groove a couple lanes. Is that something that you expected, or is that something that's maybe a bit out of the ordinary?
Absolutely, completely expected at Indy for the last couple seasons with the tire change update to the Indy 500 or the Indy cars. The problem with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway right now on iRacing is that it's one consistent level of grip the entire surface of the track, and the aero performance of the car is just so important that the grip that you lose by running behind a car taking the geometric line, which is the line that you see the real-life cars take all the time, just isn't as fast as if you want to overtake them using the aerodynamic grip that you get by running a lane higher or 2 lanes higher, even depending on how many cars are ahead of you. So really looking for clean air to make sure that nose is clear so that you can maximize the front end of the car and make sure you have that turn is really, really, really important. And I would expect, especially as we get closer to the end of the race, a lot of drivers really, really searching for clean air in order to make sure they can turn the car.
Something to follow all day long. One thing I noticed is we've got a predictive timer that tells us how long this race is going to take. This is a 500-mile race, and there is only, if we stay green from start to finish, which is unlikely, 2 hours and 8 minutes remaining. That is a pretty fast 500-mile race, Vinny, and the pace of these cars is just unbelievable as we watch the battle for the lead continue up front. These two, Espedy and Brophy, have traded positions 5 times officially, but much more than that. Every time you come across a stripe, it'll count it. It won't count passes down the back straightaway or anything if you pass back by the time you get to the start-finish. So very aggressive up front here by both these drivers, just trying to keep the top spot. And midfield, everyone's sort of fallen into a groove, Finian.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's going to be a long all up ahead. People want to hit certain fuel numbers, so a lot of guys maybe even seeing potentially playing with the fuel maps already. Again, if they feel like they're in a solid place in line. Obviously, the guys that feel like they should be further up the order, they're maybe going to make some passes here and there as the fuel starts to spread out. It gets a lot easier to make the passes once the fuel spreads out a little bit, and the driver you're chasing up ahead is not getting draft from the guy up ahead. So it's easier to pass because such can pass up the inside. But some guys, again, just waiting it out, maybe trying to feel the car out, and also make some fine-tuned adjustments.
Liam Quinn and Andrew Wood battling for 9th place at the moment as we exit turn number 2. Nose to tail, these two are, as behind him, Schowen and Adams are going to town. And for David Adams, this has been a big turnaround in his season. He switched teams. He was with the Sadie Sim Autosport cars. Now he's moved to Intense Racing, and Adams has kind of found a home there. He's already picked up his finishes and his results in just a couple weeks that he's been running with this team. So that's really been a boon to his points run so far this year.
Yeah, it's amazing how a change of scenery can really invigorate a driver's mental and physical driving. I'm really happy to see David really prospering with Intense Racing, and it's always good when you see drivers that really deserve to feel like they're driving well. Absolutely,
and it's just been a really good tail end of the season for him. Single file now as we work our way through lap number 14 of 200 here at the Indy 500, presented by Catalyst 317 for the Indy Elite Series. Up front, the two leaders continue to swap positions, but all throughout the field, there's majority single file, and I think this is the stage fitting where you're just sort of planning things out and getting comfortable with your car. But here's some passes happening back for the lead. Here comes Espedy to the inside, and Andreas Eich under fire from Jacob Oster. Let's talk about Oster for a second. He's found success twice, once at Gateway, once at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. This Team I-5G entry has been rock solid the second half of the year. Started 6th, he's moved up 2 spots, Finian, on his run to the front.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the key thing is that I feel like had his run started a little bit earlier, he could be a little bit higher up in the points. But especially with 2 wins to his name, only Pablo Diaz, who's currently not here, and Robert Malechka, the only other drivers to have more than 1 win this season. So he could make it win number 3 in the Indianapolis 500. Again, not racing for the championship, but I think at this point he definitely wants to win the Indy 500 if he can.
The other thing to mention, too, is that all the drivers down to P11 are either with the Team Talent stable or with the with the i5G stable. So you can definitely already see that there's a little bit of a class order here between the Team Talent and i5G drivers. Sorry, excuse me, and also Power Slide with Malechkin in 6th and Van Sen in 7th.
Yeah, so you see some shuffling happening here. Here's some side-by-side. Ike and Malechka, these two are the front runners in the points, and these two are battling for that championship. 15 points between them. It's going to be extremely tight come the end of the day, Finney, and we got a bunch of point scenarios to lay out as well. But I think at the end of the day, you just got to finish in front of the other guy first before you can start digging into the details of how much further forward you need to be. I think Ike would love to control his own destiny and get a win. He finally has a win this season. It had been a while since he'd gotten one here in Indy Elite competition.
Whoa.
Robert Malechka didn't have that problem. He won a handful of times and is going for it here. 5th place on the back straightaway.
Yeah, fantastic run off at turn number 2. He's going to take that immediately to go to the inside. Actually, Ike was starting to gain back on him on the end of the straightaway. I think Ike looks like he's going to surrender this for now. I would be surprised if he tries to make a run back on again. These two championship competitors. But yeah, the way it's looking out, I mean, this is a Triple Crown event, obviously, so it is going to be 1.5 times the normal amount of points. So similar to the points total we had at Texas. So I got the math. I'm going to be doing that throughout the race. But more or less, depending on where these guys finish, again, closer they are to the front, the more points Malechka is going to get. So I think he's going to try to just outright win this thing because that could give him the championship.
I think that's a really smart move by Malechka there to make sure that he tries to get ahead of Andreas before we even really get 20 laps in. Just if for nothing else than the mental understanding and awareness that he's ahead of Andreas. Andreas has to be someone that's got to pass Robert in order to actually pull away in the championship and make it his.
Yeah, I think
so he's gotta,
sorry, Adam. I just was going to say I think you want to be on offense here, and I think that's what Malechka's doing.
absolutely. You want to make sure that the other driver has to beat you in order to claim a championship. You don't want him to earn any free points.
No free lunch out here at Indianapolis, and Malechka is moving forward in that number 91. Started this race in 5th, dropped a spot early, and has moved back into contention now and is running lap times equivalent to the race leader at the moment. The front two have battled so much they brought Alexis Newsom back into the mix. She's just hanging out in 3rd of that number 63 car. She's had a solid season and looking for her first Indy Elite Series Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317 win. She rides P3. Then it's Oster, Malechka, Ike, Van de Sant, Joshua Chin, Andrew Wood, and Adriano Pinheiro, the rest of the top 10 at lap number 20.
And it's really Alexis here that's sitting in the catbird seat watching Brophy and Austin keep swap drafting because she's able to save the most amount of fuel between both of them, and they're literally just pulling her along. So she's able to maximize her stint length and is within touching distance of the lead, so she can really, if she wanted to, make a push for the lead. But I think she's probably pretty content sitting right where she is, saving as much fuel as she can, trying to build a little bit of a gap to Jacob, her teammate, but also to Robert behind the P5.
Yeah, I like where Alexis is at the moment. As you mentioned, a really strong place to be in the draft and up front, but not wasting any fuel on passing at the moment. Here's Espedy and Brophy making another pass again. We're going to continue to watch that lead change count climb after 21 laps, 7 official lead changes amongst Espedy and Brophy, 180 laps to go last time by. Deeper in the field, not a lot happening. Everyone's just kind of riding nose to tail at the moment and just kind of figuring out what they've got for the first pit stop, which will be in the next maybe 10 to 12 laps. In the background, though, here's the 13th and 14th place cars trading spots. Tony Schowen and Chris Cahill. Cahill in that yellow and red 57, new livery for him. And then on board now with Tony Schowen in the red and white car.
Yeah, and actually looking at Tony Schowen, he's actually alongside Flynn Lazier, the highest movers in the race so far, up 4 positions. You can see started in 17th up to 13th. Flynn Lazier started in 25th up to 21st. So long way forward with a 3 to try to make his way to the front.
Yeah, there's a couple other drivers making their first starts here tonight in the Indy 500 for the Indy Elite Series. Mitch Welker is one of them. This has been an interesting season for Mitch Welker. Joined in and gave this a go. He's been pretty quick on the road courses. Things haven't really gone his way in terms of luck, but sometimes you got to make your own. And I think Welker's in a pretty good spot to do that. Only a couple positions forward so far, but we know Mitch likes to play the long game. And coming fresh off a win in the Outside of Racing League last night at the Charlotte Roval, so he's certainly in tune to win races. Back up front, the two battling for the lead. They're going to do this all night long, Finney, and they're going to wear us out with how many times they're going to trade positions.
Yeah, what I'm really curious is the driver in 3rd position, Alexis Newsom, when she is going to make a move. She's been sitting just quietly in 3rd place, and again, I think this is all according to plan. She's just kind of, again, trying to hit her own numbers. And I think she realizes, even if she does make the pass, there's nowhere really much else for her to go. She's got the leaders right in front of her, so I think she's just kind of happy with her place in line. But I agree to see if she's going to try to get to the front, maybe lead a lap or so, and just try to see if she can't stick up there, or if she's just going to kind of ride this out, because again, we are approaching the end of the fuel run in about 7 to 10 laps time.
Something I noticed about Alexis and her car setup is that she's probably only got about 200 to 250 RPMs left at the top of her sixth gear. So she probably doesn't have all that much more leg in order to pull ahead of Brophy and SPT here. You can sort of see right there, 1,800, sort of 19,000 or 11,900 RPM there by the time she gets to turn 3, which is going to be, partly because of the southwesterly wind that's really giving her quite a big push down the back straight. And then she's got this headwind here down the front straight into turn 1, which will actually give her quite a bit of draft relative to the cars ahead. But I'm not sure whether she might have her car set up more for when it gets a little cooler, a little bit later in the day, when things start happening more in packs, where that extra higher RPM band will allow her to really help rotate the car and really drag up on other cars.
We'll have a look at this track temperature. 108 degrees Fahrenheit. That is significantly higher than it was at the launch of the broadcast, and those track temperatures will be a big factor as well. Another thing I saw Alexis Newsom do, she was trailing Brophy and Espedy right on their tails heading into turn 3 and had a big understeer moment where she had to back way out of the throttle. And Adam, that's something in these Indy cars that it's not very forgiving, is if you overdrive the corner or get in too hard behind a pair or a group of cars, there's so little air on your nose that if you don't immediately jump out of the throttle, you can ride your way straight into the fence without even realizing it.
Absolutely, and one of the problems with the IndyCar is that the adjustments are really such that you can't make them in reaction to something. So if you end up overcooking turn 1 or turn 3, you're getting a little too hot behind another car, miss your line a little bit, you don't really have the ability to all of a sudden mid-corner flip down on the front arb or make a weight jacker change in order to try to compensate for your mistake. So you really, your only option is really to lift out of the throttle or apply a little bit of brake. And definitely you want to make sure that you're not overdriving the corners, specifically 1 and 3, in order to make sure you don't burn up that right front tire, because that's the right front tire is the only thing keeping you between the track and the wall.
Milestones are precious commodities around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You want to trust them throughout the entire race. And as we continue to work our way towards that first pit stop sequence, we could expect to see the drivers that have been sort of at the front of their packs have to be the first ones to pit lane. And everyone that's been kind of tucked in tow, Alexis Newsom, for example, they'll be able to go an extra lap or two. Maybe even more than that. We see these cars fuel burn so much. Regardless of how slippery they are, they still have to displace so much air moving at 230 miles an hour, which is how fast Espedy dives to the inside in turn 1, takes the lead back. As we jump back to a battle for 8th place, Joshua Chin in this number 93 runs in 7th, or 8th rather, after starting in 7th. Andrew Wood right behind him, up 2 spots, Finian into 9th.
Yeah, I was curious to see you get a good run off the corner. I actually let off the gas coming off turn number 2, just again with the understeer. The tires starting to get a little bit more worn out, being in behind one another, so you got to be a little bit careful. And you see him entering high in turn 3 just to run a little bit fast in the middle of the corner, and then running a little bit high in turn 4 as well, to carry a run off of 4 to maybe try to catch Chin on the straightaway.
It's also going to be interesting, the dynamic between the rest of the Team Talent drivers and Andreas, and how willing they are to help him push him towards the championship. Generally speaking, especially in the first quarter, half of the race, you're always thinking about how it plays out towards the end of the race. So right now, Andreas being as far behind Van de Sande as he is, really is burning quite a bit more fuel than Chin or Andrew. So you got to wonder if at some point they might end up sort of flipping spots and trying to help Andreas out by extending his stints so that he can try to make up time in the pits against Malechka and the top 5.
A long race, lots of strategy, trouble, and there's a car in the wall hard. It's Matt Houston out of Indianapolis, a home race for him and Team Raceverse. That is a big impact. Is that at the exit at turn 2, it looks like.
Looks like, yeah.
We stay green. Oh, just gets on the apron and pow! Into the wall at the exit of the second corner.
Genuinely amazed I wasn't a caution with was Dan Ench coming through there, but his iRacing was asleep for that. While that happened, though, the leaders have come in for pit stops, so pit stops are already underway. Yeah,
and I wonder if that could have been in reaction to knowing or hearing that there was a crash, maybe trying to get to pit lane in case there was a yellow. Man, that's a hard hit for Houston. Unfortunately, that will likely be the end of his day. He's in the box. As you mentioned, the leaders are on pit lane, but they're already off. That's how fast things happen here at Indy. Austin Espedy back on track. Jason Brophy a long ways back, so a big gain for the 7 that time through. And more hit pit lane. It's a busy place on pit lane here at Indy, Adam. So first stops of the day.
Yeah, absolutely, and these are some of the most important stops that you'll have, especially at the beginning of the race where strategy's getting sorted out. You really don't want to make a mistake like sliding through your box or missing the pit entry just a little bit or overslowing, because especially if the race goes green, or even if it doesn't, your track position can really hampered by being back in the pack or not being able to maximize the draft that you've got as you re-enter the track.
A little race off pit lane. See some body work sitting in pit lane in the background. Think it belongs to the 12 of Alexander Ball as Evan Adams races Flynn Lazier out of pit lane. Did Ball have some damage here, or was that unrelated? Let's go back and have a look. You see the wing piece is sitting on the ground, Finney, and was that from contact in pit lane? You think the wing piece is sitting right there?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. He made contact with Wayne Hunter, who was the driver just in behind him. Hunter actually ended up missing his pit stall.
Oh, right there.
Right there. I think that was one of those moments where you thought the guy would go invisible, but unfortunately he didn't. And yeah, some contact there. So going to cost Ball 5 seconds. I mean, luckily at least he was coming into his pit, so he was able to fix the wing, but going to cost some time out there on the track.
Yeah, he's down in 29th place now as more drivers hit pit lane. Mike Kitchell, AJ Musselman, Joe Branch, and more. And we're going to see everyone cycle on through, but this is the critical moment here because the drivers out front right now, Jacob Oster, Newsom, Malechka, Van de Sant, Wood, and Welker have all gone 33 laps. It's a long way here, especially since a lot of these drivers were kind of in their own air. They weren't really tucked in tow. They've done a good job of saving some fuel, and they've gone about 2 or 3 extra laps, Adam, and that's going to prove critical if they can do that on every run.
Absolutely. It means that they shortened up the last stop for the last stint. You can see Jason Brophy's almost lost the lap here just in front of Jacob and Alexis. So really good job by the top group to save as much fuel as they did. And we'll actually see where they pop out here as they make their stops now too.
There's Jason Brophy rolling through turn number 1. Again, he's chasing Austin Espedy, who will cycle to be the race leader, and Espedy's going to have a much larger lead than he was before. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Finian, is at this stage in the race, I would have expected to see a yellow by now. We've had 2 really close calls, but no cautions for the day. So this is going to set the tone for the rest of the race, I think. Once you get through your first pit stop sequence, everyone's got more track, more room around them. You're less likely to see a caution flag, and that can change your strategy as well if you were expecting one.
Yeah, and I want to imagine a lot of the guys were preparing for the long haul. I mean, especially after the initial green flag, guys are a little bit more conservative. So the fact that we have gone green to the first round of pit stops and pretty much finished that first round of pit stops, you probably are going to see a pretty long green flag run again if someone does make contact. But everyone's been playing it calm, cool, collected. That's going to become a lot less as the race goes on.
I thought the 7 was going to cycle to the lead, Adam, but it's Jacob Oster who will cycle to the front. 4 drivers are going to beat everybody else. The late pitters, Oster, Newsom, Van de Sant, and Malechka are all in front of the number 7, and they're going to have a couple lap newer Firestone tires as well, so that's not going to hurt them either.
That was a fantastic pit cycle by Jacob and Alexis. I think what ended up helping them there was the fact that they had draft through the last bit of the end of the first stint, so they were able to actually make up time on Austin, who was completely in clean air and had to push all the air by himself in order to start the first part of the second stint. And that extra time that Jacob and Alexis had in the draft meant that they end up inheriting the lead as soon as the pit stop cycle ends.
Well played.
Fantastic.
They put themselves in a really good position at this moment. Here's Brian Carey on Liam Quinn, battle for 11th. And now Oster has a half-second lead over Alexis Newsom, who will inherit second place. Then Alexander Van de Sant in the number 97 will take over third. Van de Sant coming into the night is 5th in the points. And so far this season, well, he's our most recent winner. It was back at Long Beach a couple of weeks ago where he picked up his first win on the season. And it was perhaps a bit unexpected because the first half of the season was marred by some poor finishes. 19th, then a 7th at Iowa, then it was 20th, 16th, 9th. Then he had a 3rd at Milwaukee, 11th at Laguna Seca, 7th at Texas, 2nd at Gateway, then finally capped it off with a win at Long Beach. So Van de Sant's kind of riding the high here into Indy and taking as much momentum as he can, Finian.
Yeah, curious to see what he's going to be able to do sitting in 3rd now. He's been slowly working his way up the order. I saw him got around Andreas Ike quite a few laps ago, and also got ahead around Malechka on this round of pit stops and slowly approaching on the leader. So definitely a force to be reckoned with. Jason Brophy, former race leader, back down in 7th, right ahead of Andreas Ike. And speaking of Ike, just doing a little championship point calculation. As they run right now, Mleczka is still 2 points behind Ike in the championship standings.
Well, I want to also point out Jason Brophy's season, because it has been hit or miss. If he finished 6th or worse, it was outside of the top 12. And if he finished 6th or better, it was he has a couple of those as well. So he's finishes like 12th, 17th, 26th, and then the other finishes are all inside the top 5, or most of them are. So it's really been at the top of the order or way at the bottom. So I hope Brophy can kind of sort this one out and be on the top half of that and finish off the season on a high note. Up for the lead, here comes Newsom, finally making a shot for that pass, Adam. She sat patiently for that first run. Here she comes to take the lead at lap 38.
Absolutely. It's been a fantastic first 38 laps for Alexis and Jacob both. And now what you see is the sort of the team game, because we've got the I5G pair here in 1st and 2nd, and then the power slide drivers in 3rd and 4th, who will both be swapping to try to maximize and shorten the gaps respectively, to try to close in and extend the stints again, making sure that they're pushing the pace, making everyone work really, really hard to try to keep pace.
Brian Carey, Liam Quinn still going at it for 11th place at the moment. And just up the road, there is a battle for 6th happening behind Adriano Pinheiro. The cork in the bottle, perhaps, the 56, 88, and 76 all running nose to tail. Then you have to look back a little further, find Joshua Chin and Andrew Wood battling for 9th. Here comes the 88 to the inside of the 56. And this is an easy point for the 88 to get derailed at this point in the race after leading so many laps early. So many laps being 19 of the nearly 40 that we've run. It's easy to get yourself kind of put off sequence and kind of be run down the order at this point, but he'll have to fight his way back to the front as Pinheiro now battles him into turn 1. Up front, Oster and Newsom still battle, and Van de Sant now is in Newsom's position from that first run, Finian.
Yeah, again, curious to see what these guys are going to do. As Adam mentioned, the top 2, Oster and Newsom, again, the I5G guys, and then Mleczka and Van de Sant teammates in behind. Curious to see what they're going to do, if they're just going to kind of sit in line. I mean, there really isn't much for them to do. They could try to fight up ahead. That's just going to let their competitors that they're actually putting decent ground on behind, they're just going to be able to catch up. So, I mean, I feel like they're probably just going to kind of sit in line, let these 2 guys swap back and forth, try to pull out a lead.
Yeah, my expectation would be that Alex Van de Sant is more than happy to let Jacob and Alexis try to swap draft and drag him along, as well as Robert, and then just try to build a gap to the cars in 6th and beyond. Just force them to burn up more fuel trying to follow and catch up.
Mitch Welker hits pit lane. This has got to be an unscheduled pit stop. He's going to hit pit lane at lap number 41 in his Flight Sim Thunderbirds livery. Good-looking car, but not so good-looking on pit lane at this stage in the race, Finian.
Yeah, as he's entering turn number 1 last lap, made some contact, trying to see who that was with. That was Flynn Lazier. Made contact with Flynn Lazier's right rear and Welker's left front as they're entering the turn. So I think Welker ended up getting some damage from that, came in to fix it. Back on the track.
Yeah, it's going to set him back a little ways, but that's, that kind of damage, it looks minor. Adam, we saw just a little bit of damage on that left front wing, but it's going to have a massive effect, and it's probably better to pit and get it over with, fix that car. It's still early in the race. You're probably going to get a caution at some point to get caught up, but it's going to be a long hunt for Mitch Welker, and he's a lap down too.
Absolutely. Even a little bit of damage, especially to the aerodynamic furniture of the car, is absolutely massive at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it's definitely going to be a long slug here with a little under 160 laps to go to try to make up that extra lap.
Here comes Liam Quinn on Brian Carey into turn 1, side by side for 11th.
Yeah, these guys have been going back and forth for the majority of this run. Again, just kind of, I think this is the whole plan. They got about 2 seconds back to, they're 2 seconds back, from Joshua Chin and Andrew Wood up ahead. So I think they're just trying to slingshot past one another to make up time.
Is that an effective tactic, Adam, when you're running, with another driver and there's a group ahead of you? Is it an effective tactic to switch spots like that, or are you frustrated and just want to have the track to yourself to try to make up that time?
Absolutely, it's a massively important tactic and super useful, because you're literally increasing the speed of the pair of you by 1 whole car length every straightaway, if you're able to do it each straightaway. So if you place that over 10 laps, that means that you're 20 car lengths ahead of where you would have been if you were by yourself. So it's, especially at the beginning of the race, really, really, really critical to push the pace and maximize the distance that you can put between yourself and your competitors. Super, super huge.
Something
Yeah,
that,
big thing.
Go ahead,
Big thing, though, I got to say, this big asterisk to that, you got to make sure you're doing it right. or the guys that you're working with are able to work properly, because if you're not able to get the pass done in time, you're just going to slow both of yourselves down. So it's something that's really easy on paper, but kind of difficult to execute in real life scenarios. So we'll see. A couple of these guys have been doing it. Again, the leaders have been doing it pretty well, and but it is a hard thing to do, a hard thing to pull off, and we'll see these guys try to do it constantly to make up ground. But especially if you're not teammates too, it's hard to coordinate.
Notice the clouds over the speedway. Sorry, Adam. I just wanted to point out the track temperature is dropping as well, so that will be a factor all day long, Adam. But go ahead and elaborate on that.
No, I was just going to say that you really need a car setup in order to make sure that you've got the ability to swap draft effectively, because depending on how the car's set up, you might not even be able to have that ability. So being within the same stable and having good setup that allows you to swap draft, and making sure the technique of being able to run two different lines so that you can maximize the draft down the straightaway, that's how you make sure that you're able to swap draft effectively. And some cars just aren't set up for it.
Newsom set up for the top spot. She'll go back by as we work lap number 46 of 200, closing in on the 25% mark. This race is sailing by. It goes green from here to the end, an hour 45 remaining. It's about 7:40 on the East Coast at the moment. We're bringing you the Indy Elite Series, Indy 500, presented by Catalyst 317. Up front, the two have been trading position since the drop of the green flag. It's just been a different two. On the second run versus the first, there's a pass for sixth, and here's Liam Quinn and Brian Carey still side by side, continuing to trade positions at this point in the race. Keep an eye on other drivers kind of working their way through the field. Flynn Lazier, if any of you mentioned that he was one of the biggest movers early in the race, up 7 spots total now, and doesn't appear that he's gotten any ill effects from that contact he had with Mitch Welker.
No, I think it was definitely the winning side of that contact. His pace hasn't really slowed down any, so he's still marching up towards the front. Big thing's gonna be, can he get there? I mean, he's been kind of marching up, but his progress has slowed down. Of course, you're going to face harder and harder competition as you work your way up the order. But again, still a long race ahead. Sitting back in 18th to see if he can try to get anywhere closer to the front. But again, long race ahead, and especially sitting already 13 seconds back from the leader, so we've already got a deficit to make up.
Yeah, and a single yellow here brings everyone back, even as far back as 25th or 27th. So as long as you're able to stay in the lead lap, a yellow brings everyone back into contention, and caution's precaution. So just keeping up is important, especially for the first 2/3, 3/4 of the race, where literally you're sort of setting yourself up for the finish.
To approach the 1/4 mark here is Brophy under fire from Pinheiro in the number 56. He'll go by for a position. And Adriano Pinheiro has been an interesting one to keep an eye on this season. Think back to early in the season, back at Road America. That was one of the first races that Pinheiro, actually was the first race that Pinheiro ran, and won that race at Road America. And for the rest of the season, he ran 23rd at Mid-Ohio, 8th at Milwaukee, 5th at Laguna Seca, and 16th at Long Beach. So like Brophy ahead of him, real hit or miss season, but when it's been a hit for that number 56 driver, including that win back at the National Park of Speed early on in the year.
Oh, sorry, Adam.
I was just going to say, interesting to point out that Brophy and Pinheiro have been swapping more effectively than Jacob and Alexis in the top pair, because they've actually made about 0.7 of a second, almost a second on the leading pair. So it seems like they're definitely able to swap draft more effectively than the top group, which is interesting considering you definitely don't want Adriano Pinheiro and Jason Brophy back in the top 5 or top 7 of the shot at the beginning, because they will be aggressive working their way up towards the front.
Yeah, and they only really got, as far as traffic, they only got Wayne Hunter, the only lap car between them. You can see them right there in the background, so they're not even that far behind on the track as well. So by the end of this run, I think before we get to the next round of pit stops, they should be getting close to there. Maybe not exactly getting the draft up from the guys ahead, but definitely close enough range where if there's a small mistake in the pit stops, could be a change in the order up in front.
51 laps into the Indy 500, presented by Catalyst 317 for the Indy Elite Series, the season finale, the 7th annual Indy 500 for the series. It's been all clean and green so far as we work our way into the second quarter of this race. Newsom leads, Jacob Oster, then Alexander Van de Sant, Robert Malechka, Asad Espedy, Adrian Pinheiro, Brophy, Ike, Wood, and Chin. Your top 10 at this stage in the race. The weather is beginning to cool off, but as I say that, the track is beginning to be sunlit again in turn number 1. Look at that track temperature, though. It's been all over the place, Adam. Is that wreaking havoc on the cars, or is that something that you're used to dealing with here at Indy?
No, that'll be wreaking havoc on the cars. It'll definitely be affecting the handling of especially the groups that are in traffic. You'll need to really manage how you apply the weight jacker and how you manage the front and rear anti-roll bars, because the hotter the track, the slippier the track is, and the more you need to make adjustments in the car to try to compensate for how grippy that is. And like you said, once the track gets a little bit of cloud cover, all of a sudden drops 7 or 8 degrees, and that just screws with everything. So you need to make sure that you're sort of ahead of the track changes as much as you can, and making sure that you're still placing the car exactly where you need to, and you got to keep all the other strategic stuff in your head about how you're saving fuel and when the pit stops are going to be.
Lots of navigating strategy and track position to deal with tonight. Working lap number 53, Finian, we're beginning to close in on our second pit stop already. They go quick. These cars, their tanks and their burn rate are pretty small and pretty big comparatively. So we're working our way towards lap number 60, which we'll see a couple of the front runners begin to hit pit lane, although the top 4 or 5 are the group that hit pit lane later, about 33 laps in, so we could expect their pit stop maybe a little sooner this time because they've been out front, maybe lap 63, 64 this time through, but we'll keep an eye on the different strategies. Here's Joe Branch. We haven't talked about him yet today. Running the Catalyst 317 car there. He is running 15th, started 18th, up 3 positions, Finian, in this early going. Going the right direction, but it is slow slog. That progress has not been incredibly quick for the number 28.
Yeah, Joe Branch, of course, the main admin of the series, constantly putting this show on for us to watch, everyone at home. Does a fantastic job setting everything up. But yeah, Joe having a pretty average run, sitting currently qualified. Let's see, qualified in 18th, currently running in 15th. So yeah, hasn't made a whole lot of forward progress, but slowly but surely getting there. Again, sitting 12 seconds in behind, so has to overcome that deficit. But it was actually running times on par, if not faster, than the leaders. So has a chance to get back up there.
Tim Quinn and Brian Carey continue their fight forward. And the gap up to Joshua Chin is 3.7 seconds. You can see Chin entering turn 3 way up the road, that little purple dot. And here goes the 79 sliding on through. And we've had 2 cars crashed out early in the going. Christopher is one of them. Matt Houston, the other, both crashes in turn 2, both caused by understeer that resulted in a wall impact on the outside and a subsequent wall on the inside. We stayed green this entire time, and in the first 56 laps of this race, we've had 15 official lead changes amongst 4 separate leaders: Oster, Newsom, Espedy, and Jason Brophy. So that's what's been going on so far. Still a long way to go, though. And for guys like Branch, who have had slow progress, Adam, nothing to fear just yet. There's still a lot of time left.
Absolutely not.
Oh, no, go Adam.
No, I was just going to say that absolutely not. There's nothing to fear just yet, because single yellow pulls everyone back together and bunches up the field and makes it a little bit more interesting, the pit strategy.
Benny, you panicked a moment ago. Did you see something I didn't? Someone slid across the racetrack?
Yeah, I was watching Adrian Pinheiro. I was going to say that he's been making some really good time out there. He's been catching the leaders by himself. Brophy and him got disconnected at some point, and actually you're going to see, I think, Pinheiro he's actually letting Brophy on by. So actually a bit interesting. He just slowed on the straightaway there, I guess according to plan. But for Pinheiro, what I was saying is that out by himself, he's actually catching Newsom and Oster, even though they were both slipstreaming with one another. You see that is
Aaron Roofs in the 26. He's going to hit pit lane. That's a little earlier than we'd expect. Lap 58. Not race-breakingly early, but he's in and out.
Started Pinheiro downshift aggressively into turn 1. Oh no, it sounded like he clutched it. He clutched it into turn 1.
It's right on board here. Let's listen.
Not sure that was planned or a mistake, but
oh, it didn't sound intentional. It sounded almost like he meant to hit the brake and hit the clutch instead, but it was an awkward moment in the drivetrain. Didn't like that. It kind of shuddered a little bit, but Adam, tell me about fuel saving in this car. What's the best way to do it? Is it just fuel map and lifting, or do you just use the fuel maps, or what's the best tools in the toolkit for a driver of one of these IR18s?
It's a combination of everything. So you've got the fuel maps, which are quite effective, but affect your pace quite a bit. But believe it or not, it's actually RPM, managing your RPM and throttle inputs. So lifting does help, but especially if you're trying to make pace, making sure that you're in the optimum RPM band, which is above 11,200. That's going to be the best way to save fuel, at least while you're trying to push. But yes, the fuel maps, making sure you're caught in the draft of a car ahead, and as we see, Pinheiro and Brophy both pit here too.
And they're side by side heading down pit lane. They're going to race to the box. Brophy might have actually made a pass on pit lane, getting creative with the pit limiter there, but he is through and in. And Finian now is just about executing, and we go thinking back, and we keep reminding Brophy of this moment in the season, but think back to Homestead. At the beginning. Was it Homestead? What was the track that Brophy just had a really bad day?
I think it was Homestead.
We went to Homestead, right? I'm not going crazy?
Yeah, I believe that was the opening round.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure. There's so many rounds.
That was not the opening round. We actually haven't been to Homestead this season.
Oh, boy. See, I knew it. We've been to Homestead in the past. We opened last season with Homestead, but it was one of the oval races early on in the season. It was Michigan. It was the first race. It was just up in Michigan. Where the 88 just had a miserable day on pit lane, just had a tough time getting in and out.
Yeah, made like 2 or 3 mistakes down on pit lane. He easily could have won that race, but yeah, as mentioned, just ended up throwing it away just for bad runs on pit lane. I mean, they always say you can win and lose a race off of pit road, and that usually applies to the pit crew members servicing your car, but it can definitely also apply to the driver coming in and out of his box and making mistakes speeding on entry and on exit.
Yeah, stopping these cars is so hard because the brake bias is typically pretty far forward, and the way that the cars are sprung is really suited to the oval and not so much for the pit lane. So it's a good thing we don't have virtual renditions of the pit crew here, because there'd be a lot of hurt crew members depending on who's driving the cars.
Yeah, and actually, because speaking of the brake bias too, wasn't it this year's Indy 500 last year's Indy 500, where I'm not sure it was the brake bias, they were messing with something, and there was like 3 or 4 cars spinning out coming into pit lane. They were messing with something. I forgot what it was, and it was catching drivers out when they were coming into pits, but it helped them get speed on the track. I forgot what they were actually messing with.
Yeah, there was a rear bias trick in the Andretti Autosport cars, I believe.
Yeah.
That was causing them to literally loop while they were in the pit lane because of the brake biases they were entering. So definitely not that much fun when you do that. But these teams are always looking for the 10th of a 10th of a 10th of a percent. So if you can find it, then your opponent will, and then you're sort of stuck behind them.
That's a risk versus reward for sure, finding that extra 10th of a 10th of a 10th, because if you mess it up, it could cost you tens of tenths, hundreds of tenths. And in fact, even more than that, it could end your day. But at least you can't get that creative necessarily with the parts and pieces on board the car. Here's Alexander Van de Sant, 30 laps into the stint as leaders hit pit lane. Oster and Newsom are coming on down for fresh Firestones and some fuel. And they're going to bring, looks like, Andreas Zyk, points leader, in with them, as well as Joshua Chin in the purple car in the background. So Van de Sant, Malechka, and Wood stay out. But notice how much shorter their run this time was, guys. That was only about a 29-lap run for them this time around. It was 33 their first time out.
Yeah, not surprised at all by that, because these guys, both of them were in the lead. Obviously, really didn't have a time to save any fuel when they were constantly switching back and forth. Sorry, similar to what we saw with Brophy and Speedy, and how they had to come in early. Now Brophy and Speedy both had a chance to save some fuel before coming in.
Dan Ench, pit lane.
And the money lap here is lap 80, because if you get to lap 80, then it means that you can do 30-lap runs and finish with enough fuel to make lap 200. So everyone's sort of taking the first half of the race to try to make sure that they can get to lap 80 on fuel, and then it should be clear sailing from there to the end, as long as the rest of the race doesn't happen.
Alexander Van de Sant's kind of trapped on the outside here. He's going to have to hit pit lane relatively soon, and he's got Andreas Eich to his inside, as well as Adriano Pinheiro, but looks like he'll stay out another lap and hopefully get down to the bottom of the racetrack. Are we going to go 3 wide into turn 1? Not quite. The 76 backed out of that, and Finney, that's a good call because he's in a championship battle, and that position is not worth the shove at the moment.
No, absolutely not. And again, all this entire race is all about risk versus reward. With some of these moves, knowing when to make a move, at what point in the race you make a move. And again, as you mentioned, just there for Ike was not worth the risk. He's going to sit behind and let this play out. I mean, he knows that Van Sand is a driver that's going to have to come in, probably going to be coming in this time by. I hear Andrew Wood is coming in this time by, who's directly in behind these guys, and Van Sand does pull in.
Yeah, so this is an interesting stage because they went 32 laps on this run, and if you do the math there, they've averaged more laps on track in green flag conditions than everybody else have at this point. They're the only two to last that long. So, Adam, they're just putting themselves in a position to give themselves more options later. Again, as you mentioned, as long as you hit lap number 80, you're pretty much good. But it's about setting yourself up for having options of when to pit. And I think kind of averaging out your runs is a good call. We saw the first group, they went really far that first run, and they could not do the same the second. But the 97 and 64 planned this out seemingly very well.
Absolutely. You're thinking about the last stint of the race, so the shorter you can make that last pit stop, assuming everything goes green and there aren't any other variables or issues that anyone else has, you're all thinking about that last pit stop. So making sure that you can extend your stints as long as you can while pushing the pace, which is always the compromise, is part of the fun and the trouble of racing the Indy 500.
Alexis Newsom retakes the lead, cycles back out. Oster and Robert Malechka, he is snuck into the picture here into third place. Finney, remember, comes into the night 15 points back from Andreas Eich. And as it stands right now, he's in a pretty good position to take that 76 car down.
Yeah, if you heard me go ooh a little bit a moment ago, it's because Malechka actually got close to almost taking the lead away from the top two. Wasn't quite close enough, but was able to get ahead of his teammate Van der Sant and actually put Malechka in favor to win the championship. So as they run, championship would go to the 91, although that's been switching back and forth. So Ike's in a battle with Adriano Pinheiro for 7th place.
And we've also got Jason Brophy and Austin Espedy of the Team Talent stable that have been able to hook up together just over in 5th and 6th, and they're only about 1.7 seconds away, 1.4 seconds away from the top 4. So they're going to be able to work together to make sure that they can pull themselves up. But Andreas, who's as you point out, sort of in the championship battle, he's another 5 seconds back with Adriano. So it's going to be quite tough for Andreas to work his way back up. He's going to need a yellow here to put himself back in contention here in order to really battle with Robert for the championship and for the win here.
Well, we've got little couplets of cars forming around the racetrack, just groups of 2 to 4 cars that are kind of in close proximity to each other. We have not had a caution yet. We have had a couple of incidents, Matt Houston and Christopher, single car crashes early in the day, but we stayed green through all that. But as we get these groups running together and as we get closer to the end of the race, you're going to stop giving so much and start taking more and stop depositing and start making withdrawals at that point. So I think we're going to see the intensity ramp up as we close in on halfway in the next 30 or so laps, and that's when people can get themselves into trouble when they don't back out of things they should be. There's still a lot of racing left to go.
Yeah, there you see Ike get ahead of Adriano Pinheiro. The struggle is that Ike and Pinheiro, for that matter, didn't really have that good of a pit sequence. Brovey, on the other hand, managed to get a really good pit stop. He was able to break away from these two. He was fighting with Ike and Pinheiro just a couple laps ago before the pit stops. But now both those guys are left back, and they're currently 7 and 8 seconds counting back from the leader.
Yeah, there is the inclination, too, to always, especially in this sort of middle investment period of the race, to fill up every time, but sometimes it's worthwhile to even short fill a little bit so that you can make sure that you come out in draft, because you can always save behind the cars that you're around in the pack. And I'm not sure if Adriano might have just made sure that he filled up full, where Brophy might have taken a little bit less fuel so that he can end up around a teammate and end up dragging himself up towards the top 5, which, if he did, was a seriously clever strategy.
Mitch Welker hits pit lane again. He's off strategy because of the contact he had earlier, so he's going to hit pit lane now and go a lap down again. I think he just needs to get lucky and catch a caution at the right time at this stage in the race. A couple cars are 1 lap down. Alex Ball, Dan Ench, Mitch Welker, and Wayne Hunter. A variety of these drivers have had some small incidents today, but nothing major at this point. Pinheiro and Andreas Ike trading spots for 7th again. Liam Quinn, Brian Carey, Chris Cahill, and Flynn Lazier all swapping spots back and forth. But up front, it's Newsom, Oster, Malechka, nose to tail, and in cooperation, it seems, for the time being.
Yeah, actually, I was just actually going to looking back at the replay because I was curious how Pinheiro lost time because looking at the pit stop delta, it's exactly the same. When they were coming out of pit road, Pinheiro actually almost got loose on the access road in turn number 2 that you have to take when you're exiting pit lane. And he had to back out of the gas quite significantly. So Brophy just took off in the distance while Pinheiro ended up losing time. Is now stuck back fighting with Ike, and now Joshua Chin and Andrew Wood entering this fray. It's a little battle with this group here for 7th.
And you can see on the Delta how costly a mistake that was to have that oversteer moment on the exit, because 5 seconds behind Austin Espity is the pair of Andreas and Pinheiro. So really costly error, but hopefully they'll be able to work their way back up towards the front and make it a little bit more interesting for the championship fight.
Working lap number 73 of 200. Back up front, the red and white car center screen is your race leader. The green and yellow, that's Jacob Oster running in 2nd. As they continue to kind of dominate this front group. They've had this for about a run and a half now as it stands as we close in on the halfway point. One car dives out of the way there, or dives out of the draft at least, and then right back into it. A lot of weaving and wobbling here on the back straightaway.
And Alexis and Jacob really haven't had to deal with trying to overtake lap traffic, which is, this here is their first real foray into it, and the balance changes massively versus what you had previously expected running in clean air to all of a sudden having to run behind traffic and overtake them. So it'll be interesting to see, especially once the race progresses, if it continues under green, just how much of an effect the lap traffic has on the top 4 or even top 5 as Brophy and Austin Espity get quite a bit closer.
And think back to last year, Finney. Remember, we came to the checkers with lap cars in the mix. So we could certainly see that again here. But I think there's a lot of drivers that are probably just praying for a yellow flag. Really, anybody outside of the top 5 would like a reset at this stage of the race just to get a little closer and kind of reset their strategy. But the way we've been going, I don't think that's incredibly likely. I think we'll see at least one by the end of this race. I'm not sure that we're going to see a handful, though. So plan accordingly. Don't expect one, and move your way forward if you can. But I don't think a reset is all that unlikely as we pass the halfway point and get into the final 250 miles of this race.
Yeah, that's what you're approaching halfway. Let's make me mention the fact that we haven't had a caution. It just makes the fact that if you make a small mistake, it's going to cost you a lot more because we haven't had a caution. Or Adam was talking earlier about, the caution kind of resets everything, and it does. It's resets, brings everyone back close together again. You get fresh tires. You have to go again at some positions where you may have not been able to with some older tires, and with the distance you had to cover to the car up ahead of you. Once caution comes out, everyone gets smacked back together. But we haven't had that. So if you made a small mistake, costing you a second here or there, like we talked about with Pinheiro, and ended up losing a few seconds of time, the fact that having caution hasn't been able to make up that, and that deficit, he's got 5-second deficit to the next car ahead of him. So that's a lot of time to make up on the track when you're all going relatively the same speed. If you try to go a little bit faster and just hope the other guy ahead is held up a little bit more than you, and you just got to make sure you're hitting your corners and apexes as good as possible. But it's a lot to make up, and as I say that, caution now.
Wow, caution, and who is it? I think it's the 82 of Wayne Hunter. Yes, it is. And so our first caution at lap number 77 here in the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. Let's go back and have a look at how this happened.
Wow.
And
this is going to be a wild ride.
All on his own. This is entering turn number 2. Oh, I'm going to understeer up into the fence here. Yep, same thing we saw earlier. And holy wow, smashes the wall on the inside and litters parts all over the place on corner exit. That was a violent impact. Oh,
yeah, you don't want to see that. It's an awkward thing. And that wall has been modified, if I'm not mistaken, due to the fact that it's in such an angle. Oh, man.
That hurts to look at. This is a video game. I mean, this all starts early here in the corner, Adam, and this is something that we see a lot, is that understeer starts early and you don't get out of the throttle quite quick enough, and then once you hit the wall, break the suspension, you're just a passenger.
Absolutely. The right side tires are completely loaded, and because you've got a lot less aerodynamic grip, the car literally it just understeers right to the wall. You're a complete passenger, and then the rest of this trip is just absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it's excruciating as you go to the wall. I mean, for us, it happened so fast, but for Wayne Hunter, it probably happened in slow motion as he came up off of turn number 2. Here's what it looked like from the turn 2 exit camera. He's probably going to make contact right at the end of the frame here. Right there, bam. And, the change in direction is massive. So our first caution at lap number 77. And this is the reset that so many drivers needed to get their race back and how they wanted it. And pit road is a very busy place. And Adam, this is an interesting lap number 79. You said lap 80 is where everyone wanted to be. Is this okay for them, or do they need to save a little bit from here to make that strategy work?
With the yellow, they'll probably be okay, but there'll definitely be a little bit more strategy here towards the middle part of the next stint, just to make sure that they can still try to maximize or minimize the amount of fuel that they have to put in the tank for the last stint. So this definitely resets the order and brings a lot of people that were sort of towards the back of the field back into play. And who knows, if we get another yellow or two here, then all of a sudden the calculations shift a little bit. Maybe some people decide to stay out when others pit, and then the track position game gets shifted again.
Well, we're going to recycle everything and update you on everyone's position when we come back to the green flag. In the meantime, we're going to show you a special piece from Catalyst 317 as we enter our final round of the season with support, final Triple Crown round of the season with support from Catalyst 317. We'll be back for the restart in just a moment.
What's in a name? Everybody's got one. It's an identification, a label, a brand. How do you make your name? How do you earn it? A name can make you feel a certain way. Just by hearing it, it can stir an emotion or wake a memory. Sometimes you represent a name. Sometimes it represents you. But some names are different.
25 victories for Michael Andretti.
Some names mean more. Some names are a legacy. A family, and a team.
Monterey almost clips the grass. Hey, Dad, watch this. Marco Andretti to the inside, and now Michael.
Half lap lead, clutch and coast. Same fuel, clutch and coast.
Brian Hunter-Reay wins the Indianapolis 500. What a win. Zach Peak victorious. Marco Andretti wins over Kanan Dixon.
Full throttle, full throttle, full throttle. Checkered flag. You just won the Indy 500, baby! Oh my God. Let's go!
Yeah, some names are a little different. Some names mean everything.
Back live for the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317 from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Kyle Heyer, Finney DeCuna, and Adam Crane bringing you the action in this 500-mile, 200-lap event here at the Brickyard. Setting the stage for the restart here, the 27 to Craig Forsyth stayed out during the caution flag. Caution for Wayne Hunter, the 82, crash off of turn number 2. Resetting for the restart, Oster and everyone else behind him came to pit lane. A handful of others stayed out a little bit deeper in the field, including... looks like Mitch Welker, Alex Ball, Dan Ench, and a couple others have made that call as well. There is 120 laps to go, and green flag back in the air. Big stack up in the background. Cars scattering on the run down to turn 1.
Yeah, everyone else trying to get the jump on one another. Again, it always usually leads to those stack ups, but it looks like everyone avoided each other. Curious if anyone picked up a penalty. It doesn't look like it, so we're all set to going away. I'm sure a few heart attacks in the back of the field when you catch up on guys extremely quickly. These cars accelerate really quickly and decelerate really quickly, so you got to be on your toes. But up in the front already, Oster has Craig Forsyth. Now Alexander Vandesen, who gained a position on the pit stops, trying to work his way through. Malechka also trying to work Newsom also trying to work to the inside.
Hectic moments after that restart, Adam, as everyone gets an opportunity to grab positions. And as Larry Mack would say, cautions breed cautions. This is tense moments here because you've got positions right in front of you, but you can't get too greedy. There's still a long way to go. Don't put yourself in a bad spot here.
Yeah, you really got to be measured as you try to overtake cars, not to put yourself in a bad spot. You got to keep in mind that if you've boxed and your tire pressures are low, you need to make sure that your tools are in the right spot, and really try to make sure that you're able to maximize as much as you can the battles and the track position that you can gain, while also being measured about making sure you don't end up in a wall or put someone else in a wall.
Mitch Welker was one of the drivers that took the wave around. He's back on the lead lap and is about 10 laps off strategy now, but at least that's a platform to work off of and build off for the rest of the race. Here's Matt Holloway. We haven't talked about him yet today in the 0-2 car. He started deep in the field, not super far back, about midfield, 16th, running 18th place. He has not really had much in the way of moving forward, but now side by side with Aaron Roos, excuse me. Yes, he's a couple laps down in that number 26. And wow, big dart out to the left by the 59 of Evan Adams. As for second place, trade position, Van de Sant takes P2 away from Craig Forsyth.
I'm curious what Forsyth's going to do, because he's really off sequence compared to everyone else in the field. So curious if he's just going to kind of sit in line, just try to fuel save, or just going to try to keep running at the same pace as the guys up ahead. Because he's got to figure out how to get, if he's even good, or has to make an extra pit stop for these guys if we go green all the way to the end. And considering how clean the first run is, you definitely got to consider the fact we could very much go green all the way to the end.
Yeah, I definitely think that his strategy, especially where he was, is just to try to go as long as he can on this stint, and hopefully stay up close enough to the leaders that he doesn't end up losing a lap when he pits. But like you were saying, if a yellow pops out at the right time, then all of a sudden he can get equalized with everybody else. And part of the other thing too is when you're so far behind, if you do what everyone else ahead of you does, you're doomed to remain in the same spot. So really, really good punt for Forsyth to at least try something different to try to end up towards the front. And if it pays off, then he'll look like a genius.
I think anybody would like to look like a genius at the end of an Indy 500. Just so much effort and time put into this. Qualifying done last week. Drivers and teams putting in hours and hours of honing in setups and racecraft throughout the season, and kind of learning those around them, learning their tendencies. That's all going to help you in the closing stages of this race when you're up front. Noticing also, though, in the championship battle that Andreas Eich in the 76 doesn't seem to be incredibly strong. He's sort of been mired in the back half of the top 10. Not a bad run by any stretch, but when you got Robert Malechka chasing you in the points and he's ahead of you, Finian, that's a nervous point for Eich at this stage in the race, that he's not at least right with Malechka.
Yeah, and I'm doing some recalculations with the math, and as Malechka finally gets past Craig Forsyth, puts himself up into fourth, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get my last number of Excel sheet open.
One car was in the wall at the exit of turn 2. It might have been the number 27. Let's go back and have a look and see if there was contact. Oh, it was the 88 of Brophy, just the slightest scrape there as he exited turn number 2. And Adam, this is something that happens a lot. Is that something to be concerned about?
No, it looks like it might have just been a little bit of netcode contact, which we know the IndyCar is pretty susceptible to just because of the high speeds. So I don't think Brophy would have picked up any damage from that, but definitely he's going to have to keep in mind that running so close to Forsyth in that position is going to cause the car to understeer just a little bit more than he might have been expecting. So he just has to take it a little easier there on the exit to make sure that he doesn't pick anything up.
Yeah, that's something that we saw be an issue back at Texas a couple of weeks ago, was with that close racing. And the high speeds that you have in the IndyCar, it really makes that netcode issue a lot more prevalent. So you just have to leave a little bit of extra room and be as predictable as possible. And at a place like Indy, where there's, there is sort of a groove and a half, 2 grooves here, but you still have to be conscious of that when you go off into the corner. You can't just drive right in on somebody's side pod. You're going to end up crashed. At the end of the race, though, all bets are off. You got to go for any position you can, especially going for the biggest race of the season. Van de Sant leads Oster, Newsom, Malechka, and Brophy in the top 5. Let's jump back a little deeper in the field, talk about a few drivers we haven't had a chance to chat about yet today. Mike Kitchell in the number 04. He started 21st, riding in 20th. John Downing, we haven't mentioned, 22nd to 21st. These guys have just had very quiet days, and I think just a little bit of a miss on the setup, perhaps, Finian, but they've got some work to do.
Yeah, missing the setup, just poor track position, just things, just not aligning. Stars not aligning for some of these guys. So again, Ray's still young. We're still we still haven't gotten to halfway yet, so still a chance to potentially turn that around, especially with strategy. I mean, you look at Craig Forsythe, the gamble he took, still sitting in 8th, though he's dropping down the order further and further as this one goes on.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that a lot of the guys towards the back. Oh, as Brophy almost catches the wall again out of 2. That was a lot closer this time, and that was in clean air. Oh, he might have picked up a little bit of damage from that contact that time.
Ooh, I think he might have gotten away with it. He looked like he just scraped the wall, but it was awfully close. You can see right here.
Oh, he knew it. He pulled down to the
flirted.
apron, hoping that the racing gods would forgive him and give that 2 inches of extra room he needed back, but that didn't happen. That was really dicey. That tells me he's fighting that car just a touch. He's been real close to the exit wall, and it just takes one slight misjudgment and your race can be over, so that was really close.
Yeah, and looking at his car, it looks like he didn't get any damage to the side pod and crucially didn't get damage to the floor, so that car is good to go. Shouldn't really experience any problems. Anything, it might be maybe not even half a second or a tenth of a second of damage to fix on pit lane.
It's been a very interesting afternoon already for the pole sitter with the pit lane incident where he just missed his box a little bit and then trying to catch up, catching a nice yellow to pull himself back up and then almost catching the wall twice. So it's been a heart stopper for Jason Brophy for sure.
Has he had any races this season that weren't heart stoppers at one point or another? That poor guy just needs a nice, clean, quiet race. And those are few and far between for him, unfortunately. But he certainly has the camera on him a lot, which is definitely not a bad thing. But I think he'd like to sneak one by us and win without any major dramas for once. I think he'd like that. Here comes Oster to the inside of Van de Sant for the top spot into turn 3.
Yeah, gonna throw it to the inside. These guys are just swapping back and forth. It's interesting to see now that we finally have a little bit of a mix-up in the order. We've had teammates usually in the first and second spot for most of this race, 2 different teams. Really Team Talent up ahead at the beginning, and then now, or sorry, I think it was the Power Slide guys are up here at the beginning, and then now the Team I5G guys were then up there, and now we got a little bit of a mix of teams up near the front, so no one team can really control this race. Again, I imagine people still being patient. We haven't ticked over halfway, so still a lot of racing left, still a lot of pit stops left in the race, but guys kind of more or less finding themselves in order, and we kind of have an idea, I think, of who's going to be the drivers that are going to be fighting for this one.
Yeah, the extra fuel margin that everyone had before the last yellow came out has more or less disappeared. So now they have to sort of reset their fuel calculations and how much fuel they're trying to save in order to minimize the amount of time that they're on pit road for that last stop. So these next probably 2 or 3 stints are really going to set us up for who's got a good car and got a good final pit stop for the end of the race. And it's really going to set too bad.
Oh, no, I also wanted to point out, too, you're talking about changes in the strategy. I also wanted to talk about changes in the track temperature. Track temperature has gone, to 116 degrees. I think we're starting to see it with some of the difficulties handling with these guys, especially off of turn 2.
Yeah, watch Adriano Pinheiro here. I think he's going to get pretty loose. He's going to get the apron here. Watch this at the exit of the corner. Whoa! That might not look like much, but I can tell you what, that is a heart-stopping moment at 210 miles an hour as he comes up off this corner. Watch this car again. Like, this is look at that thing. That's sideways at 210, 215 miles an hour. That's certainly a moment you don't want to repeat.
And so we're seeing a fluctuation in temperature. Again, we saw it as low as 99, 98. So we've seen a fluctuation, 18 degrees in temperature. That's really significant. And, again, we're talking about if these guys have been able to set up their cars or at least give themselves some flexibility with the setup to be able to account for fluctuations in temperature. I would imagine so. You want to be able to account for several different conditions because you don't know over the course of 200 laps how this race is going to go. If we're going to get more clouds, if we're going to get more sunlight, you never quite know. You can't really predict the weather that accurately on this particular track.
The other thing too is that we still do have what's sort of flipping from a southwesterly to a southwest, a southerly to a southwesternly wind. So that'll be inducing oversteer into turn 2 on exit. So it's not crazy that people are actually. You can see a lot of drivers coming off of 2 really washing out and that'll be because of the wind gusting and shifting a little bit. So changing conditions is a huge component of the Indy 500.
It's not something that we talk about a whole lot here at iRacing, is the wind direction. And because, typically when we're doing stock cars or GT cars, the wind is nothing more than a footnote in the weather widget. But here in an Indy car, at these speeds, these cars are lightweight. They've got, fairly decent, surface area on them to catch that wind. They really seem to react quite significantly to them, Adam. And 9 miles an hour is a pretty decent breeze. So in the car, can you tell when it changes, or is that just something that you notice something's funky, and then you go look at the weather later and go, okay, that's why?
No, absolutely. You can definitely feel when you're really tuned to the car. You can absolutely feel a change in wind direction or a change in wind speed, which is pretty remarkable given the limitations of the sim that we have in iRacing. But if it's a westerly wind, then you've got the headwind into 3, or into 4, which you definitely feel as a lot more front grip. And then also as you're heading down into 1, if you've got a northerly wind, then you definitely feel the understeer as you try to turn into 1. So definitely feel the change in wind direction and wind speed. And these are just other components that the drivers end up having to deal with, which just makes it more fun.
Yeah, fun. That's right. That's the word that everyone's probably using. I wanted to point out Flynn Lazier, the number 3 car. He has worked his way up into 13th. It has been a slow but steady climb for him today, Finney, and one of our biggest movers, 25th to 13th, continuing to impress us with how patient he has been today. And this race is coming to him. I don't think this 3 car is going to be in victory lane if things continue as they are, but he certainly is going to get a solid top 10, or maybe even a top 5 if he continues to move up at the rate that he is.
Yeah, we haven't quite been able to see if he's got a really solid car underneath him in clean air, because he's been mired in traffic this entire race. It's really close to the two exit there. But definitely have to keep an eye on him. He's been slowly picking him up and putting him down. He's been working his way through the order. Looking at this is Joshua Chin. No, not Joshua Chin. Alexander Van
Yes, Dan Ench is on pit lane, as is the 00 of David Adams. Now, these are a couple of the wave-around cars from previously. I think we're going to see Mitch Welker pull off as well, and a couple of those. Greg Forsythe as well is going to hit pit lane, the 27. So they're going to hit pit road with approximately 100 laps to go as we close in on the halfway point next time by.
Yeah, and at this point, as we're getting closer, these guys can make it, and they can make it at least 10 more laps. Looking at potentially, I think 2 more pit stops to potentially round out this race? 3 more pit stops from here?
That's likely.
Should be 3 more, I think.
Yeah, 3 more.
Well, 100 laps are complete. You are watching the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. 100 laps down, 100 left to go in the 2022 season finale for the Indy Elite Series. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Finney DeCuna and Adam Crane as we work our way through this final race of the season. 250 miles, 248.5 or something of that sort at the moment, and about 250 left to go. About an hour and 8 minutes remaining, so stick with us to the end. We've only had 1 caution so far and well over 24 lead changes in the season finale event. It is a blast to watch as we head back down to the racetrack for the second half of this race. Big thanks to Catalyst 317 for supporting the series and the Triple Crown Championship this season. Oster leads at halfway, lap 101.
The lap car of Craig Forsythe up ahead. Remember, we saw bring the fuel back to green after the 1 caution we had. Just trying to fight to stay on the lead lap. And also coming out of the pits on the inside lane, that is David Adams getting up to speed.
And back down onto the pit lane entry. That's a bit peculiar.
I was just going to say that a yellow just before Craig got lapped would have been ideal for Craig, because everyone would have pit behind him and he would have been able to stay out. So he would have been able to essentially fold right into first place after all the pit stops. But now being lapped down means that he had to take the lead around, and he's more or less in the exact same spot he was in before.
So we've had 100 laps and 1 caution. Finian, be my Larry Mack. Do we can have another one, or do you think we're going green to the end?
I mean, I would say the odds are lower. I mean, having at least 1 caution in the first half. I want to think we would have at least 1 more caution towards the end. And we had quite a few cautions near the end of the last few races, although those had I wouldn't say significantly more higher amount of caution. We definitely had a lot more caution than we had today. Again, only one caution the entire first half of the race was pretty low. So I definitely think we're going to get another caution, more likely towards the end of the race, just because at that point people are going to stop giving way, stop being nice to one another. They're going to be fighting for positions hard. That could lead to guys either wrecking into each other or wrecking themselves, pushing the car too hard.
Chris Cahill on pit lane in the number 57. Will make his way to the box. And again, we're expecting pit stops in the next 6 to 8 laps. We'll see most of the field hit pit lane. Everyone's been fairly spread out on this particular run, so I'm not expecting a lot of fuel savings by at least the drivers up in the front. Andreas Eich in the 76 is up to 8th place. He's 4 spots behind his championship nemesis in the 91, Robert Malechka, who runs 4th right now. Then Austin Espedy in the number 7 runs in 5th, and our pole sitter Jason Brophy rides in 6th. Now, he has not led a lap since lap number, I guess it was right at the pit sequence, lap number 30 or so. He had traded with Austin Espedy in the early moments, and as soon as they hit pit lane, got kind of buried in traffic. He has been stuck in 5th or worse since then, Adam. So this is sort of the stage in the race where if you're Jason Brophy, you figured out how to lead early, you had the track position, but now you need to get it back, and that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and he's probably still thinking about that last pit stop and making sure that he can maximize or minimize the amount of fuel that goes into the car. So he's probably quite content just sort of sitting where he is behind Austin Espedy, his teammate, and Robert Malechka, just about half a second ahead of Austin. Just making sure that he's in it more or less towards the end of the race, and then also being close enough to Andreas that he can help Andreas out if need be. And if you're Andreas, something I can vouch for is that you're definitely still looking at that relative box and the standings list, looking at your direct competitors to make sure that they are where they are and that they haven't been making any moves. And the longer we get into this race, the more it's going to play into Andreas' strategy about how aggressive he needs to be as well, because he's racing in the Elite 500, but he's more or less racing Robert Malechka for the championship. So that's definitely going to be playing on his mind as he's completes the rest of this race.
There were 31 competitors when we entered the race at the beginning of lap number 1. I think there was one competitor that the 76 was dead set on beating, and right now he's not doing that. So there's a lot of focus on that one particular car. Still some way to go here in this race, though. 95 laps left in this race. Mitch Welker hits pit lane. He's a little off strategy from the rest of the field, but kind of running his own race at this point. And luck could still fall in his favor if he has a well-timed caution flag. But Oster and Newsom continue to trade positions up front. 1.1 back to Alexander Van de Sande, then on the line behind Malechka, Espedy, Brophy, Pinheiro, Ike, Chin, Wood, the rest of your top 10. Here's Newsom to the inside. The 63 has led a total of 30 laps this race. That's a whole bunch. And Oster has led 39. So these two have really been the dominant force between these two so far. Finian, they're in pretty good shape at this stage in the race.
Yeah, and actually, since we're looking at the lead laps, or laps outside, I should say, we can do a check on Malechka and Ike, because I can't tell how many laps they've led. It's kind of curious. I don't think they led any. Yeah, Malechka's 0, and I'm pretty sure Ike 0. That's a big talking point, too, because in a few scenarios with the way they kind of ended up, there's been a tie in the points. And if they do tie in the points, that goes in favor of Malechka, who has 2 wins, and Ike only 1 win this season. So that's where the tiebreaker would be for these guys. So it's looking in favor of Malechka if that's the case. So that would help out Ike if he can lead a lap. However, he's not been really in any position close to the front where he can lead a lap.
Interesting, too, that Alex Van de Sande has fallen off the lead pair because he was trading with Jacob Oster there for the first little bit, but Alexis Newsom and Jacob have hooked up again, and now it's I5G 1 and 2 with Power Slide 3 and 4. So interesting to see if Alex can catch up with these top 2 pair, or with these top i5G drivers who are just swapping again, just trying to push the pace and yard everyone as much as they can to see if he can save the fuel, because he's also running with a little bit more downforce. I noticed that he was running with a little extra rear wing wicker, though it's going to be interesting to see if he can pull himself up towards the top group, given the extra downforce he's running with the rear.
See that little extra wing wicker there on the back of that rear wing. Also note a couple more retirements since the last time we mentioned Looks like Chris Cahill is done for the day. We didn't see exactly why he's out. Mitch Welker hit pit lane, and the fuel didn't get in the car. There was a bug there on the pit lane, and Mitch has called it a day. That is a frustrating way to have things end. Adam, is that a common issue on these cars? We have Oster hit pit lane.
Sorry, what was the issue?
The car didn't get fueled, even though they had it set to get fuel. So is that a bug that is known, or is that something that Mitch just discovered, unfortunately, today?
That is a known iRacing bug. I haven't had it happen to me personally, but I have seen it happen, especially in the NASCAR series. So really unfortunate way to have a race end without getting fuel in the car, given that it's an issue with iRacing. But just like the real world, sometimes fuel rigs don't work, and we're just sort of having to figure our way through them just like they do in the real world.
Yep, here comes Alexander Van de Sant. From second place, Alexis Newsom stays out. She's on lap number 32 of her run. We'll see. Looks like the 3 car of Lynn Lazier is also going to follow. So does the 31 of Tony Schowen. So extrapolate another 30 laps. That puts you at lap 140 to 143. And then one more run would put you at 175 to 180. And then that would be your final stop. So 2 stops from here, it looks like. And that will leave us with about a 20 to 25 lap run to the end if you time everything based on your maximum fuel load. But we might see drivers pit a little sooner than that, try to get in early. We'll see how things pan out here as more drivers hit pit lane, including Brophy, and it looks like Pinheiro is going to follow. So does the 64 of Andrew Wood. The 88 real fast on the pit lane.
Oh, yep, that's a black flag.
Oh, no. And for the pole sitter, again, pit lane has been his Achilles heel, in real hot and just too much speed. Man.
Super tragic from Jason Brophy.
Yep, I mean, he can argue that in court, but I don't think it's going to hold up well.
I don't think he can argue it, unfortunately. I think that's the robot overlord steward that you just can't argue with, as more cars hit pit lane. And real big charge from the 91 of Malechka, but I think he got it woed down just fine and gained a bunch on the number 63. That was a really opportunistic dive by the 91.
Yeah, no, he's all good and set to go, so no real problems there for him. We'll note also Mike Kishel, also another driver that's got a black flag coming into pit lane. I assume it was also speeding as well. Yeah, he also got bopped for speeding.
Let's go back and have a look at pit lane entry.
Actually, this is interesting. He actually didn't get it on entry. He actually got it after the fact. He forgot to either hit the pit limiter or had an issue hitting the button. Thought he did. You're going to see him slow way down here. Oh, then he's going to accelerate more. And I think thinking that the button was on, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I've also had situations like that in my experience in sports cars or something where you forget to map the pit limiter button, and then you don't realize that until the race. At this point, you would have known that, but that's always a frustrating experience to get deep into the race. You come for your first pit stop, an hour in a GT3 car, and forgot to map the pit limiter, and you speed, and it looks horrible, and it's just not a fun time. So I don't think that's what happened to Kitchell, but he certainly didn't hit the button, and that's why he was able to speed.
Just as you were talking about, guys, Andreas Eich ended up staying out an extra lap, so he ended up picking up that extra bonus point for leading the lap.
And Robert Malechka crucially did not, so that is going to help out the 76. Now, there's a couple more opportunities for the 91 to get that, but as it stands, that's going to be a slight gain for the 76. As we cycle out, Oster retakes the lead. Malechka slots into second. Newsom down to 4th place. She was pretty conservative on that pit lane entry there, Adam, and it looks like that's why she's lost some positions.
Yeah, you really got to try to maximize everything once you're trying to get into the pit lane. But again, we're still 2 stops away from really the last part of the race. So as long as you're able,
getting awfully close, Malechka going to fly past the line. So he's also going to lead a lap.
Well,
so
there goes that.
Yeah, one bonus point for leading a lap for each. They could, however, especially for Malechka, he could, however, secure, or at least try to secure most laps sled. I think that's still up for play. Actually, who's leading that at this point? Because we had a few different guys up in the front.
I think Oster and Newsom have been trading it back and forth the most. I think Oster has had 40 laps led. I think that's significantly more than anybody else.
Yeah, so that's going to be the mark to beat. It's going to be hard to do, especially when you're going to be swapping back and forth with that same driver. But definitely in the realm of possibility. So Malechka can try to get another bonus point there. And that's pretty much it as far as
I want to bring some more attention to that wing wicker that Adam Crane pointed out. There's the look at the back of the number 09. The wing wicker kind of goes about a third of the distance across. And then the other cars you were pointing out, Alexander Van de Sande, you can see here the wicker is much wider. So Adam, explain to me what this does, and is more better, is less better, is it a balance? What's the strategy there?
So it all depends on how you've got the car set up otherwise, but generally speaking, if you have a larger rear wing wicker, it'll be more downforce at the rear of the car. Your aero efficiency will be a little bit better, but that'll come with having additional drag as well. So you need to set the car up with a little bit more front end in order to counteract the extra downforce that you have at the rear. But it also means you're going to be burning a little bit more fuel because despite the fact the aero efficiency is a little bit better, you've got more downforce and drag overall than someone who's running a smaller wicker. So it'll be interesting to see if Van de Sande still has the ability to save as much fuel as the other cars, because in theory, if he's running a little bit more wicker, he should have a little bit lower top speed as well as be burning a little bit more fuel. So it'll be interesting to see how we finish off towards the end of the race with the pit stop strategy, and whether or not that extra wicker really helps towards the last third of the race, where the track temp ends up sort of being as high as it'll get. Because I think we're at about what now? 108 still. So it'll be interesting to see. The track temp should stay pretty warm for the next 40 minutes and then decrease a little bit. So we might just be in the sweet spot where that extra wicker really, really helps Alex Van de Sande.
Yeah, and actually, I was just flying through the field. Only about 4 or 5 cars actually have the larger wicker. Everyone else has a smaller one on the rear wing. So interesting to see that dichotomy. And again, different strokes, different folks. It really depends on how you have the car set up entirely. That really shifts the aero balance and how you want to shift it, maybe more to the rear, more to the front. A whole lot of little things, these whole little nuances. That's what makes the open setup so interesting. I wish I was much better at building setups, because then it would be a lot more interesting for me. But some of these guys are able to just work their magic and get these cars to work their way and get a whole lot of speed out of it. It's amazing to see that unfold and see what these guys are able to come up with here. And up at the top there, you can see on the back of Mleczka, Oscar moved to the inside turn 3.
Have a look at this as we work our way into the depths of the second half of the race. 82 laps to go. We've had one caution, 8 different leaders, and 34 lead changes. Guys, is this a race at Talladega or Indianapolis? Because that lead change number looks more like something you'd see in Talladega, Alabama, not in Indianapolis, Indiana. This has been a very competitive race up front.
Actually, speaking of which, the real life NASCAR race is at Talladega today.
Yeah, I'm gonna cautiously and quietly open my phone.
Spoilers.
I'm not going to say anything. I just want to know, so I'm going to go peek in there while you guys carry the show here for 2 seconds.
But yeah, Oster working his way to the inside. Van de Sande, Newsom. What I'm really curious to see here is when these guys running third, fourth, fifth, when they're going to stop playing friendly, and when they're going to start to attack. Because we've only been seeing really a 2-car tango up in the front. When is that going to change, Adam?
I would say it would significantly change towards the start of the last stint. During the first, these next 2 stints, you're just focused on saving as much fuel as you can again. Really want to make sure that you maximize or minimize the amount of time that you stopped on pit road. But then as soon as you're on to that last stint, then all bets are off. You really got to maximize everything and push as hard as you can, because you're not going to get a win racing against talent like this without really maximizing and giving everything your all.
Still a lot of ways to go for the final pit stop. You're back.
I was just reading some things.
Oh, things happen.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay, we're good. I'm back. Lap 122 of 200 here at the Indy 500. Look, I like racing of all flavors and smells, but it seems like these Sunday night broadcasts, they've gotten in the way of a couple of really good results this season. Thinking back to Coda, that we were just finishing up watching that race as we were going live here, so you got to spread the love a little bit to as many motorsports as possible. How cloudy is it out there? Have a look at the weather as we continue to work our way down. This track temperature has fluctuated more than I can recall in recent memory at any iRacing event, Finian. We've seen as high as 118 to 120 and as low as the kind of mid to low 90s. So it's been all over the place throughout this event.
It's been awesome to see, because it's great to see these changing conditions, because it is you see these guys go back and forth from having a good car to a bad car. And it really reminds me of when Carhart in the wall off of turn number 2, trying to see what
Oh, it's Brophy. Oh. The 88 car is crashed. Pole sitter done for the day. We stay green. And it was only a matter of time, I feel, at turn 2. It's been threatening him all day long. And, yep, right there. Wall contact, and then, holy cow, that was a big impact.
Yeah, wow. I really wish we had a G-meter on these cars to see how hard they hit, but, man, that's a huge hit off the wall.
Man, that just hurts. Such a good, promising start to the race, Adam, and it all goes up in smoke that fast.
Yeah, all it takes is one corner, one little mistake offline by half an inch, and all of a sudden you're a passenger headed straight for the scene of the accident, which is exactly what happened to Jason Brophy there. Super, super unfortunate end to his race.
Well, that's how quick things go from promising to painful. That's an unfortunate end for Jason Brophy. He'll call it quits. He will join Mitch Welker, Chris Cahoe, Wayne Hunter, and Matt Houston as drivers that are retired from this race. And that will be a disappointing end of the season for Jason Brophy as well. Remember, this is our last round of the championship point season. Here's Andrew Wood diving to the inside of Joshua Chin. These two drivers have slowly been creeping their way back into the mix. Wood started 11th, now running 9th. Joshua Chin, 7th back to 10th, so hasn't had the speed that he had in qualifying.
And also, how about Flynn Lazier, who snuck his way up inside the top 10?
Telling you, he's just been doing that quietly, Finian, but he's got pace.
It's been a very quiet day for the three. He's just been slowly working his way up the order. He was running 11th before the last round of pit stops and jumped himself up into 8th just on pit strategy. So he's been doing a really solid job sitting quietly in the background as everyone else is out there racing, just been working his way slowly to the front. I'm really curious to see if he's got anything for these guys in the front, or if he feels like he's maybe kind of trying to settle in for a top 10.
Yeah, and he's still got the draft from the top 6, so he'll be able to work his way slowly up towards them, and we'll end up making it an 8-car battle pack instead of a 7-car battle pack, which will be interesting to see, as you said, whether or not he's got anything for the top group.
Malechka offset from Oster here in tow. So at this stage in the race, Adam, looking down the order, pick me a favorite. I mean, obviously the front two are in contention and doing very well, but is there someone else in this top 10 that is lurking that you think can have a realistic shot at winning this race?
Flynn Lazier's a good pick just because, like you said, he's clearly demonstrated that he's got a car that can handle being in a pack. There's a few cars up here that I'm not sure in the top 5 have really got a demonstrated ability to drive in dirty air as well. So I would have to say Flynn Lazier's looking as a pretty good pick to maybe be some kind of dark horse to pick up at least a top 2 or top 3 if he can pull himself up towards the front and has a really good pit stop without any incidents.
Finian, you got a pick?
I mean, it's really tough to pick because a lot of these guys have been pulling punches. I don't think we've really seen anyone's true pace or true form, and really how well the car's able to handle. Because, as you mentioned, it's been a lot of give and a lot of take. It's going to slowly decrease as we come towards closer and closer to our final pit stop. And after the final pit stop, all bets are going to be up. It's going to be going all at it. I think really for me, I want to say Jacob Austin is here, and he's been looking like one of the fastest guys out there. His car's been looking the best. You can argue also, I think a decent solid second pick, well, I'm not going to necessarily pick, is the 91 of Malechka.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to mention is Robert Malechka's record on ovals this season has just been pretty phenomenal. Think back to the very beginning of the season and the races he put together, a win at Michigan, a win at Iowa, then 6th at Road America. Then it was third, second at Motegi, Mid-Ohio, and Kentucky, a 9th at Milwaukee, a 20th, 15th, and 18th. Then it looked like things were going downhill, but then a 3rd at Long Beach. He has got himself back in the mix, and he has certainly proved today that he is capable of running up front. And with a championship on the line, I think he's willing to go for it here. So he's led 8 laps. It took him a while to get to the front, but now he's there, and I think he's my pick to win this race, not only the race, but the championship as well. But I think for you, Finney, your pick of Oster is a good one, and I think certainly Flynn Lazier is in the mix. Let's also not count out the 97. I think raceability of that car set up the way it is going to be a challenge, but he's been lurking all day long and certainly could be a dark horse here at the end, just kind of sneaking in behind these two up front. Especially if the two in front crash, which is a distinct possibility.
It definitely is a possibility. And that's another thing Malechka's got to consider. He can fight for the win only once, but I mean, as he sits right now, he's got to decide: is it Indy 500 or championship? What do you want? Because there's going to be a point. Because for Oster, nothing really much to lose. He's just fighting for the race win. But for Malechka, it's not just the race win, he's fighting for the championship as well. And if he ends up getting taken out, easily hands down goes to Ike. So he's got to balance that out with the risk of fighting for this win.
Got to think that Robert Malechka's thinking win here because it kills two birds with one stone, and not only winning the race but also winning the championship. So you definitely want to think about controlling your own destiny, and definitely winning the race does both of the goals walking into the race.
Yeah, I mean, if you can win the race, that's about the best thing that you can do, right? I mean, there's not much else that you could do in a championship hunt than go for the race. That was a late dive by Oster there into turn 3. Good heads up by Malechka to let that happen. I think they're still in what we would call co-opetition. It's a Darrell Waltrip word, but
DW
that's
expression for sure.
Yep, but I like that word because it really tells you these guys are fighting and they are trading position, and they're not necessarily going to be friendly at the checkers, but right now they're willing to work together and try to step away from the 97 and 63 and others behind them. Brian Carey and Joshua Chin, they're having a bit of a scrap for 9th place. Give Brian Carey P9 in the 79 car. Started 14th. He's up inside the top 10. He's been lurking there all day. And Tony Showen as well. Quiet. We've kind of been running in the top 15 area, but here he is just on the outside of the top 10, running 12th in that power slide number 31. And I think he's still got a little bit left in the tank as well.
Here's see what he's got. I mean, sitting back in 12th. He's got again about 10 seconds back from the leaders.
Oof.
They're going flying off into the corner now. And Alexander Van de Sande, he's tired of waiting. Going to make a move on Oster to the inside.
Yeah, they must have gotten bunched up there because the 97 was a couple car lengths back the previous lap around. But here he is now, right in the mix as they head down the back straightaway. The 97 is there. Malechka is going to take the opportunity to jump a couple car lengths ahead, but the 97 slots into second into turn 3.
That's 100% power slide, deciding that they want to have the top 2 and control sort of the pace of the race. Track position is going to be important, especially as we get closer to the last stop here. So making sure that you've got a clean entry into the pit lane is probably what they're thinking by making sure that they're up next to each other.
Well, Van de Sande went all the way to the lead. He will go into turn 1. And now I'm curious to see how we have to watch this swap very carefully as the 91 and 97 battle, because we're going to see the effects of this wicker potentially. Here comes the 91, and the point he's passing him right in the midpoint of the straightaway. And we saw Oster and Malechka sort of trading spots right at the end of the straightaway, so that extra drag could be a factor here with Van de Sande out front.
Yeah, the question is going to be how long do some of these guys want to stay in the front? Because remember, when you're out in the front, you're going to get less fuel mileage. At this point, I don't want to say it's a huge factor, but definitely got to be something weighing back in your mind. And these guys should have an idea of how far they can go if they stay in the front at the rate that they're pushing, the amount of fuel that they're using when they need to come in. But you want to make sure you don't go over the limit, otherwise you're going to be short in fuel.
Marshall Stanley has exited the race, so now we have 25 cars remaining on the racetrack. That's David Adams back in 25th. He is 4 laps down. We have, looks like 7 cars, maybe make that 6 cars that are 1 lap down, 18 on the lead lap at the moment. And they're, even a lap down, they're battling for position. Here's Doug South and Dan Edge fighting for 20th. A lap off the leader, but still having a pretty good scrap for position. So battles all over the racetrack, but up front it has been the most competitive one all night long, and we continue to see the lead change number extend 40 plus at this stage in the race. I think we're going to have probably 60 plus by the very end.
Brian Carey and Joshua Chin have not been able to get separated from each other this entire race. You've seen them constantly in frame together, so they have been having a really good battle, or maybe they're probably sick of each other at this point, who knows. But Chin going to get a run on Carey as they're trying to both slingshot themselves up towards the front.
I think some of this can be sort of monotonous, right, Adam? I mean, at this point in the race, I think you're going to get, you've done the same thing for 136 laps. You kind of want to change it up, no?
Well, yes and no. You still want to make sure that you've got enough of a gap to the cars behind that if a yellow comes out, that you still don't end up having to put too much fuel into the car. And you want to make sure that you're still in a race, and you still got to make sure that you're minimizing the amount of time that it takes to get from green flag to checker flag, which in this case still means you got to swap, because if someone makes a mistake up ahead of you, claps the wall like what happened with Jason Brophy, then all of a sudden you're able to capitalize on making sure that you've got the smallest gap to those cars ahead as you can.
Speaking of Jason Brophy, the pole sitter for today's Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317, his day ends early after a crash at the exit of Turn 2. Jason, an unfortunate way to end the race and the season, but the car was promising and he had good pace, but it just didn't finish the way you wanted. Take us through your night. What happened there out of 2?
Well, I lived up to my usual billing. Struggled on pit road, and there's some tuning still needed to be to the set to make pit road entry better. We're having some issues, especially kind of mid-throttle. Car kind of takes off occasionally. Right now, the wind out of 2 is brutal, and I'd already sped under in the pits. But, I was still in position where the goal is Andreas, trying to get the title, him and Rob in that tight, close fight. But it just randomly, all of a sudden, there's just a big wind gust out of 2, and people are along for the ride. I think you saw, I've done it 2-3 times. That just this time when I caught the outside wall, I didn't actually hurt the car, but it spun to the inside wall, and that was that. It's really bad. Like you just catch the wind randomly, and the car just takes off at the track. It's a perfect tailwind through 2 right now, and so it makes it really difficult to predict whether you're going to have enough grip, and hard to kind of stay close to people, especially when you're trained up. The first 2 cars, the third one too, to some extent, especially on newer tires, could stay there. But outside that, it's difficult.
Seems like drivers were sort of chasing conditions all day long, not only the wind, but also the track temperature. How much of that were you feeling in the car? We saw temperature swings over 20 degrees when the clouds would come over versus when the track was covered in sun.
Yeah, and I think we were doing better in the hotter, even though it was a little more uncomfortable. I think once you get back to the cold, you put more load in the right front tire, it gets a lot tighter. Especially then you're in traffic, right? You carry more speed into the corner, you carry more weight. The good news about the cold track temp is you might think it'd keep the tires down, but the ambient does a lot of driving on the actual tire temp. So the fact that the ambient's hot, even if the track gets down to 98, you're still probably putting a pretty good load through the tire. Still going to struggle a bit with the plow. So I think we were doing a little better when it got looser, but I think if it got much above, say, the 115, then it might have been even more of a struggle again. So I think everybody's trying to do. Oh, there might have been a gust there. It looks like. Everybody's on their toes right now. Makes it a little difficult to race, but it brings out the best driving. Sadly, today I didn't do it. So.
Well, the season is not going to end on a high note for the 88, but Jason, congratulations on winning the pole. That's certainly a success in its own right. We got pit stops going here, so we're going to get you back to the team here as you work on getting a championship for your teammate. Best of luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Pit stops underway, and the leaders are on pit road, or at least one of them, Robert Malechka. We also saw Flynn Lazier hit pit lane the last time around, so this is going to be your penultimate pit stop. You'll make one more stop with approximately 30 laps to go, but pit road's going to be a very busy place, and Finian, this is when, you're down to the point now where you can't make mistakes. Not that you could with a lot of room for error before, but now if you make a mistake, you're going to put yourself in a really hard to climb out of hole.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Odds of a caution are decreasing every single lap. So you never really know when the next caution is going to come out, obviously. So this race could go green to the end. You just want to make sure you minimize the amount of mistakes, because any little mistake at this point is going to cost you dearly. And the crucial thing, now you don't have that time to make it back up, regardless of caution.
Yeah, and everyone's strategy is pretty much baked from here, because you know that you can make it on one more stop as long as you pit here on lap 140. So with that in mind, you're not really hoping for a caution, especially if you're up towards the front, but you're definitely not planning on one.
Yeah, at this point, we've got 58 laps to go, so you're going to split this into essentially 2 29 to 30 lap runs. So not really a lot of fuel or tire strategy to worry about. You're just going to pit now and pit in 30 laps, and that will be it for the Indy 500. The only thing that could really mix this up now is a yellow in the mid-cycle. Now, I don't want to wish any evil on people, but we've seen cautions mid-cycle before, and it really mixes things up. But as it stands, we've only had one caution. We've had a handful of crashes that didn't trigger yellows, but tonight, a one yellow back for Wayne Hunter in the 82, back about 70 laps ago. Look at this battle. This is the 63, and that is the 64 car of Andrew Wood to the outside. Wood has he already made his pit stop? It looks like he has.
And Andreas Height coming in for his stop. Coming in nice and easily, not going to push the limits on pit lane.
So what's the scenario here, Finian? I mean, you've been doing the calculations so far. Assuming Malechka finishes up in the front, the top 3 or 4 spots, how close to the 91 does Andreas Ike need to be, or does he need to just go out and beat the 91 at this point?
Yeah, so I was doing it based off of when Ike was running in 7th, which is what he just came out, the position he just came from down on the pit lane, and looking at it, so if Malechka can at least finish in 2nd place, he'll be taking home the championship. If he finishes in 3rd, however, just trying to see how many points he'd be behind. Actually, if he finishes in 3rd too, it still goes to him because then it would be a tie in his favor. So looking for Malechka at the moment, he needs to finish at least P3, which is what he's been able to manage so far. Again, as long as he doesn't make a mistake. And that's if Ike finishes in 7th. If Ike finishes any higher than that, it's going to change move the ball. Whoa, very slow car on the outside near the wall. Oh, Alexander Ball's in the wall, stopping on the track.
Oh, caution! Right in the middle of the pit stop sequence. 15 cars on the lead lap. The others are a lap down, and critically, I think we had just seen the 76 hit pit lane, and he is still on the lead lap, so that could be crucial. Malechka, though, has already made his stop, but let's go back and see what happened to Alex Ball, our 2nd caution of the day. He was grinding down the back straightaway fence, and this is going to look very similar to what we've seen so far today at the exit of turn 2, I believe. Just very carbon copy right there. Gets on the apron, walks up the racetrack, bam, in the fence. Does a good job keeping it on the wall to keep it out of the inside wall and keep the damage from being worse, but did have to slow it to a stop, and that brought out our 2nd caution of the day at lap number 146. So that is going to mix things up a big way.
It's going to bring this entire field back together. Don't think we're going to see anyone come down pit lane because everyone has made their pit stop. So no real change in there. This does give the chance for Quick Foresight to make his pit stop to get back on sequence with everyone else. It's kind of an alternating strategy, although he's back in 13th. He would probably drop back to, let's see, about 18th because everyone else has come in the last few laps. So no real huge shakeup in the order, except for the fact that Alexis Newsom was gifted the lead as she came in right as the caution came out.
I think the shakeup is not so much in drivers getting trapped a lap down or having strategy change. I think the shakeup is going to be in the run to the end here because, wow, a couple cars faking a pit lane real late. I think the shakeup here is going to be now the aggression level is going to come way up because you've got tangible finishing positions right in front of you. How can you not go for that dive? And now this is the point where I fear that things could get messy if drivers aren't careful on this restart.
Yeah, it's a chance of getting real messy real quick, depending on how aggressive some of these guys want to be. Again, we do still have one more pit stop for these guys to make before they can make it to the end of the race. So there is still that to consider. There is still a kind of stopping point for these guys, so we could see them wait until that final pit stop to go full bore, or we could see them, as you mentioned, could see them go right now with everyone so close together. Like Ike, he's been waiting to gain some position again, as we were talking about, as Malechka the way he is right now. As they run, Malechka's taking on the championship, so it could be a chance for him to try to move up 1 or 2 spots. It could really help him out.
And it's not crazy either to think that if Andres is able to get past Adriano Pinheiro, that he might end up getting some teen orders from Austin Espedy to help him out, in which case he's all of a sudden into the top 5. And then maybe that, I'm not sure, Finian, if that changes the calculation for what Robert has to do in finishing maybe P2 or even needing to win the race instead.
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw the numbers in here right now. And if he does end up finishing in 5th, as long as Malechka finishes in at least 2nd place, should be good to take home the championship. So it just gives him one extra position. That may not sound like a lot, but every little position helps. Ike really, what he needs to do is try to get near the top 3. But again, it's easier said than done. And at the moment, it doesn't quite look like he's got the car to run inside the top 3, top 4. So at the moment, again, could be him just being patient this entire race, but from the looks of it, doesn't quite look like he's got the pace.
Well, we are closing in on 50 laps to go. 1 pit stop remains in our race today for the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317 in the final round of the season and the final round of the Catalyst 317 Triple Crown for the 2022 Indy Elite Series season. This is a different kind of season than we had last year. Last year we sort of spanned the entire calendar year and ran races from basically March until October. This season, a shortened season, really the first half of the year to kind of give way for some exciting things in the second half. But wow, what is going on here? Alexis Newsom with a wave around?
Oh, is everyone getting the wave around? Okay, I think the scoring's having
hard time.
Oh, you know what? It might have been messed up because she was in pit lane. When the caution came out, that might have had something to do with it.
So we're going to have the caution extended here to get everybody bunched back up. It's a long way around. Pretty tricky to catch the pace car here when the track is 2.5 miles long. But getting prep for restarts. This will put our restart at lap number 150. So 51 laps will remain when we take the green flag. So earlier in the day, it was Flynn Lazier was Adam Crane's pick. It was Jacob Oster who was Finian's pick. I had Robert Malechka in the number 91. Anybody want to amend their picks at this point, or are you still pretty happy with the choices?
No, I'm still pretty good with mine. I think Oster's got what it takes. I really think it's going to come down to our picks, though, more or less. Flynn Lazier is still a little bit further back than I'm sure that he and I would probably like for a chance for him to win, but still some racing left to go. But definitely, I think Oster, Malechka, Van de Sande, Newsom are definitely the standout drivers, as all of them have been in the lead for a semi-decent amount of time during this race.
Yeah, I think as a dark horse, I'd still pick Flynn Lazier for the win, but if I was a bet man, then I'm definitely going to probably roll with Alexis Newsom, who's been pretty much within the top 3 almost the whole race, and I'd say has one of the strongest oval skill sets of anyone in the field. So I'd roll with Alexis for the W here.
All right, lights atop the pace car will extinguish this time through, and we'll get prepped for a restart. Now, also should note that our last restart, our only restart of the night, we had a huge stack up in the back. Now, remember back a couple seasons ago, we had a real big crash that ended a lot of people's days pretty early in the event on a restart. So that is going to be a particular challenge that they'll have to navigate because at this stage in the race, you want to get that jump, but that jump can be a dangerous one if you do it just a little bit wrong.
And just looking at our field here, we got 26 cars still running on the track. Actually, Jason Brophy's gotten back out on the track to continue running. So 26 cars still rolling, of which only 18 on the lead lap, which is the thing is I think is definitely more than what we had last year. So still a lot of contenders left in this race, a lot of very fast cars still left in the race as we get down to the final quarter of racing.
One of the other things too that you can definitely have in your back pocket when you're doing these restarts is a spotter who can let you know when the leader's going. And just looking at the session, looks like we got 5 cars with spotters here, including most of the top 5. So we'll definitely be maximizing as much as we can here on the starts to make sure that all the starts go as easily as possible.
So as I understand it, Andreas Seid needs to move up 1 spot to win the championship if all other things stay the same. Robert Malechka needs to stay where he is or improve if he wants to win this championship if Andreas Seid stays where he is. So there's a championship on the line as well. We're going to have 50 laps to go this time through the final quarter of the 7th annual Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. The flag is in the hands of the starter, and we are going green in the last quarter of the Indy 500. Here we go. Green flag back in the air, racing again from Indianapolis. Nice clean restart by the looks of it as we head down into turn number 1. Everybody stays in line. No one jumps out of position, so I think we got away without a stack up there.
Yeah, looks like a solid getaway. Van de Sande making a move right to the inside of Newsom. Has a great run down the back straightaway. Much going to try to see if he tries to take the opportunity to move to the inside, but does not, as Newsom gives a lot of room on the top side of the track.
Onto the front straightaway again. Laps going to tick down pretty quick. If we go green to the end, 33 minutes of racing remain. Those minutes are going to go by very, very quickly for any of those that are behind the leaders. It's going to take forever for those that are out front. It's going to feel like ages. Cars popping out of line in the background. I think one of them was the 44, Liam Quinn. There's a 64 of Andrew Wood. He is, where is Andrew Wood in the running order right now? down in 20th place.
Oh, he's actually in the grass.
That's
something
not
happened.
intentional.
Yeah, I see him come off the wall off of turn number 2. I think, yeah, this is really weird. Don't really have an explanation for this.
Well,
I imagine hardware failure of some kind, either screen, something.
Looks like he might have been performing some admin duties and cleared a bunch of black flags.
Oh yes, that's what it was. I was hearing them talking about, because a lot of people got black flags. I didn't realize that was him pulling to the inside to clear everyone's black flags, but yeah, that definitely adds up.
here comes Van de Sande again to the inside. And as we continue to work our way in this final quarter of the race, have a look. 46 lead changes. That is pretty phenomenal. We're about to have one lead change every 4 laps in a 500-mile race. That is exhausting.
It's really exhausting. It's going to get more exhausting here as these guys are going to start fighting a lot more aggressively for this top spot. Newsom, Van de Sande duking out at the moment. Malechka sitting in behind in 3rd. Again, patiently waiting his time. Doesn't really need to do anything yet. I think a lot of these guys are going to wait till that final pit stop to fully push it to the end. We'll see if anyone's planning anything beforehand. Austin Speed, we really haven't talked about him. He's been sitting quietly in 5th place for a majority of this race. Hasn't been really interacting with the top 4. He's just been kind of biding his time. Adam, what do you think that this number 7 car's got?
Not too sure. We saw Jason Brokey have a really competitive car there towards the start of the race when him and Austin were swap drafting. So I think he's got a much better clean air car than a traffic car. But we'll see what he can do here towards the end of the last stint when all things start popping off and we get massive aggression from everyone there in the top 5.
Well, Flynn Lazier had to have a big lift at the exit of turn 2 because Joshua Chin just cleared himself up into the exit of turn 2, and Lazier had to back out. And they managed to both escape that, but that's just one of those moments where Lazier had the experience to lift and not to try to keep the nose in there at this stage of the race. Not worth it right now with 45 to go. You're getting down to the point where you're going to keep your foot in it, but I think that was a pretty good call.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys go flying across the line. Where Pinheiro and Ike are in relation. Both of them have been slowly losing the leaders yet again. Ike's been really struggling to get around Pinheiro. He's been kind of the wall in his way towards the rest of the field. He's not been able to get past him for the last 100 some odd laps.
This is just going to be frustrating because it just appears that today Andreas Sykes just got a 7th place car. And sometimes that happens, but you just wish that you had the 2nd or 1st place car on the day when it matters the most. Think back to last season, Finian, when Andreas was in contention for a championship, and then he went to Long Beach before the season-ending race and just had a miserable day, and that really took him out of contention. He is in contention this week, and if he comes up short by just a couple of positions, that's really going to sting.
It really has, but I mean, even in this race, too, he's finished 2nd quite a few times in the past, and I think the last thing he wants to do is finish 2nd place in the championship after coming so far, after leading for a majority of the season, and have Malechka come back at him at the end here. It's been a fantastic fight between both of them, a big ebb and flow throughout the entire season. It's all come to a head here with just a couple of points of separation, a couple of positions on the track of separation between themselves and the championship.
Yeah, and what Andreas really needs here is he needs Adriano to really pull up a little bit closer to the group ahead so that he can be affected by the dirty air, and then Andreas just needs to make the right decision once to pick the right line, and then he should have enough momentum that he can work his way around Adriano. But unfortunately at the moment it seems like there's just a little bit of an air gap there, a little bit of a bubble that Adriano just really can't break through, and it's just keeping Andreas in the same position, and he's just not able to really close the gap and isn't offering an opportunity to make an overtake.
All he needs is one spot. That's the frustrating part, right? I mean, if Malechka stays 3rd, which that's a gutsy call because I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. But if he stays 3rd, all that 76 needs is one position to come out on top in this championship. If you finish 7th and you needed to be 6th, that's going to burn a lot. So we'll see if Andreas can get there. But Malechka, talk about his season. He kicked things off strong, winning the first 2 races. Besides Long Beach, his last couple of rounds were pretty bad. He had an 18th, a 15th, and a 20th. Got crashed out at Texas. At Gateway had some issues, and at Laguna Seca didn't have a very good day, 20th place there. So he just had a miserable 3 rounds. Think if he didn't get crashed out at Texas, or if he ran better at Laguna Seca, this wouldn't even be a competition. Malechka would certainly be leading at this point. But just those messy rounds mistakes have led him to be kind of the one on the offense here tonight. But at least for the 91, he's in position to take advantage of Andreas Eich's sort of mediocre day.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? You can't have a whole lot of bad days, especially in a championship form where there's no point reset. Every single week is going to count, and you got to really maximize your best days and try to minimize your worst days and get every single point possible. Because it really comes down to it. We're coming down to scenarios where these guys tie, which you think about it, over the course of 12 weeks and how many races we've done. The fact these guys are tying is absolutely incredible. Or even close to tying is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's always amazing how as soon as you finish the season, you end up doing an autopsy and races where you could have done better. You could have one position here or there could have been the difference between winning a championship and losing it. So I don't think a championship is won in a race, but I think both guys, depending on how the rest of this race goes, will be looking at either the way that it finished and what could have been, and the way that it finished and what ended up happening.
40 laps to go, and Newsom and Van de Sant continue to swap positions in front of Malechka. 91 waiting in the wings. We talked earlier about how Newsom was riding third that first run, and Adam, you said that was the place to be. As we get down to the last 5 or 6 laps, is third still where you want to be, or do you want to be second as one of those drivers that's swapping positions up front?
I think definitely as you get into the last stint, especially the middle of the last stint, you definitely want to be one of the top 2. With the way that the track operates, where you've got 2 lanes, it's so hard for the third driver to end up finding enough clean air that they're able to get a run or have enough of an exit out of either 3 or 2 in order to maximize an overtake. So I think definitely with the amount of fuel that you save in third, you're probably going to be in a position where you should gain a little bit of time in the pits to pop yourself into second, but making sure that you maximize the entry, get into the box, no issues. It's a really, really, really tough ask, and everyone knows that this is the money stop. This is the one that counts the most, and it's going to set you up for the end of the race.
Yeah, especially considering that not only does that stop have the weight of a win, it's got a weight of a championship on top of that, so you can only imagine the pressure having to deal with that. Make sure you don't make a mistake again. One small slip up, one slide through the box, you can throw everything out the window.
Oh, look at this. Cespedes to the inside of Oster. That was a dive, and Oster's way up out of the groove. Almost scraped the fence of the Team I-5G car. Super close to the wall, but didn't manage to scrape it. That was really tight.
Yeah, I think was just trying to make sure he gave a speedy space. I think he got caught off guard. I think wasn't expecting a move from the number 7 car.
Look at this. That is a, oh man. That's very tight.
It is very scary when you get out there. Sorry, Adam?
And there's air up there, so you've got tons of aerodynamic grip. The problem is that you're just traveling a further distance. So depending on the car behind you and what kind of gap they've got to the cars ahead of you, it could mean the difference between keeping the spot or losing it.
Again, here comes Espedy to the inside. That's making me nervous, the way that he's kind of darting down, and Oster's leaving him room. Oh, they could come together so easily if one of them times that wrong. About 6 laps away from window opening to the end, and I think you'll probably see some drivers pit right at the opening of that window, and some might go a little bit deeper, but I imagine you'd probably want to pit closer to lap 170 than 175.
Yeah, this is what Adam was saying earlier, is that you don't want to necessarily do what the leaders are doing. Some of these guys are going to try different strategies to get themselves up on top, because if you do the same thing as the guy, as he said, if you do the same thing as the guy in front of you, you're not really going to gain or gain anything. I mean, obviously you're probably not going to lose anything as well, but again, that's the risks that come with the territory. So here's see who's going to be coming in first, who's going to be coming in later on this stop, and again, it's all going to be coming down to this in a couple of laps. So these guys kind of think, yeah, I think they already got a number planned of when they want to come in, but they have top 5, top 7 all closing in.
And there's a little bit more flexibility with this top group to do something a little bit different, just because you're not really in as big of a danger zone of losing a lap if you pit early. But for the cars that are 10th, 15th, there's a serious risk that as soon as they pit, they'll lose a lap, and then if the yellow comes out or something happens on pit road with the leaders, then all of a sudden you're down a lap and you never get it back because the yellow's out and you've lost the advantage of doing something on strategy. But for these top group, especially Andreas Eick, I'm looking at maybe trying to do something a little bit different to see if he can get around Adriano, maybe catch a little bit of help on the exit to make sure that he's got a little bit of draft, because as we saw in the first stint, if you pit if you pit and you don't have the draft with Austin Espartee, then you end up losing track position to someone that does have draft who's staying out.
Whoa. Heard someone just scrape the wall at the exit of turn 2. Cutting it close here. About 22 minutes of racing remaining. The minutes are counting down, so are the laps. As we hit lap 170, maybe it's 180, the ticker was going to start counting down. When we get there, that's when my heart rate picks up. When we start seeing that lap counter say 20 to go, 19 to go, 18 to go. It's like counting down a shuttle launch. But this is a trip to a place almost as coveted as the International Space Station, and visited by a few more, but still just as coveted in North American history. So working lap 168, the pit window opens in 2 laps time. You could actually probably start, you can make it to the end here if you're in draft. I don't think you're going to cut it that close though.
No, I think they're going to try to make it not near as close. The last thing you want to do on this last thing is have the fuel save. So I think you're going to see these guys extended a few laps past just to make sure that they can push it all the way. Especially you got to consider too, if you're going to be in the front leading the race, last thing you do, you want to have to run out of fuel. So I think these guys are going to push it as long as they can for this time, especially too, if we get a caution coming out, you want to be all the way in the back of the order.
So everyone's wondering, well, why have we not seen anything else outside the top 10 recently? Well, this is your best battle, and it is for the lead, Adam. So all the action is up front for the time being.
Yeah, and definitely when you're considering the amount of fuel that goes into the car, you don't want to base it based on the draft number. You want it based on what the clean air number is, or at least a hybrid of both. So making sure that you box with enough time or with enough fuel that you can comfortably make it to the end on a full push is really why these guys are extending this thing just a little bit more, because every liter of fuel that they're able to make sure they've got to push to the end could be the difference between winning and, again, winning or losing a championship.
Next time by will be 30 laps to go. That would be what I would consider the pit window to really be open, and we might see some takers. I think the leaders will wait a few more laps. And then it's the all-critical moment of when you hit pit road. Cars popping out of line. There's the 97 to the inside. Van de Sant takes the lead away again. Now, the other thing I want to talk about a little bit is tire wear. The Firestones, in my experience, Adam, it seems like their lap times don't fall off that much. It seems like it's more just the handling goes. You can still make decent time with them, but it gets harder to make time. Is that sort of accurate in your opinion, or do you really think that you need to, tires are important, you should be one of the first drivers down pit lane if you can help it?
So you definitely don't want to trade tire wear for fresh tires for track position, because as we've seen the entire race, track position is key. But as far as the overall tire degradation goes, it's pretty similar to real life in that as the tire wears, it gradually gets a little bit quicker because the tire ends up having less weight. Because you're shedding rubber, so you're able to... Oh, Adriano down on the escape road.
Yeah, now that is a little unexpected, as I don't see any damage on this car. As a whole bunch of drivers hit pit lane from the lead. Here comes the 97, 63, 09, 31, and more.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go down in pit lane. Also just want to give an update up in here. He actually did hit the wall off at turn 2. It doesn't show the damage of that wheel. It is cambered at a weird angle on the right side, so I think he's going to be sitting in for the pit road repairs for quite a while. But as you mentioned, all the leaders. Oh, there's Jacob Oster sliding through his box. That's going to cost him.
Just a little bit, only tenths of a second, but it's going to matter. Here's Malechka out on his own. Will he hit pit lane this time? I almost feel like he has to, Adam. He can't spend a lot of time out here on his own. He's going to stay out another lap.
Yeah, him and Speedy and Ike will stay out another lap.
Well, as long as he's got friends with him, I don't think it's going to be race ending, but that's just makes me nervous when you get that far off strategy here.
And a really fast lap for Speedy and Ike that time by, both getting the draft from Malechka. So this is going to change up the order a little bit. Off of pit lane, here comes Van de Sant off the access road. So he's going to pull ahead of Malechka. Malechka going to get a toe off of him, moves to the inside.
Yeah, Andreas is in an absolute optimum position because he's about 1 second behind Austin Espartee. So he's getting the draft, but he doesn't really have the negative effect of the draft in the corners. So he's able to really maximize. This is exactly what you want if you're Andreas.
Oh, Speedy coming in lane. Yeah, that's going to kind of open up the gap a little bit to the car in front. But if Andreas closes, and if he can grab 1 or 2 positions, that will make him feel a whole lot better coming to the stripe if Malechka's got to win.
Well, remember that we were talking about how he got one more position that makes Malechka's job a lot harder. Because Pinheiro ended up in the wall, he's going to drop out of the order, significantly out of the order. So Ike's now should be running in 6th if this all cycles out the way it should. So from that alone, it's going to make Malechka have to finish at least 2nd.
Well, tense moments here in the closing 26 laps or so. Malechka stays out again. He's on lap 32 of the stint, starting lap 33, so he's running out of fuel at this stage. I would expect next time by to be the magic number for the 91.
Brian Carey, Flynn is there, AJ Musselman coming in for their pit stops. Still waiting on Malechka, Andreas Ike, and Joe Branch. Matt Holloway, he also throw into the mix. Those 4 drivers still yet to make their final pit stop.
Now the gap between Andreas and Malechka is only 1.1 seconds, a little under or a little over 1 second. So you can see just how much of an effect the draft and a little bit more clean air can help chasing car when you're running someone down.
Still not coming
wow.
in.
I'm impressed with the mileage that 91's been getting, but I'd have to think, I mean, the problem is the 97's back on track too, so if the 91 bailed, it wouldn't help, kind of strand the 76 car, but Andreas is gaining a lot of ground here. And again, as you mentioned, Finney, he's going to cycle out to 6th if everything stays as is, but he might actually leapfrog another driver too. So he could end up in 5th, and that would really force Malechka into a win or lose situation at that point.
Yeah, try to see Speedy and Newsom. They're kind of out in cleaner air. They don't really have a whole lot of people around them to draft off of. So I think you should be gaining on both Newsom and Speedy if everything worked out.
He just ran
so
4 tenths faster last time by than Newsom and Espedy did. So that is, or at least faster than Newsom, who's the leader of this group. So Andreas is really crushing it, and now he hits pit lane with Robert Malechka, the 2 championship rivals coming down. There were 15 points between them entering the night. With 23 laps to go, they're going to hit pit lane for the final time.
Yes, and the money stop can't make a mistake. Both of them. Ooh, Ike had to slide back just a little bit. And Jack's drop on Malechka's car, and for Ike they drop 2. Both of them off and away.
Now 10th faster in the stall for Ike, so that will help negate some of that slower box entry. Newsom and Espedy trading spots here, and where comes the 76? He's going to cycle into 5th. If he can stay in front of Jacob Oster, that would be an absolutely critical moment. Here's the 09. There's the 76 in the orange leaving pit lane. Malechka is 2nd. Andreas Ike is 5th. But is that enough for the 91?
Hold on, give me a second.
But he's actually Malechka's going to cycle to the lead here. So that might be all that Malechka needs. If he can cycle to the lead, he'd have provisionally the top spot and a shot to win this thing.
And it looks like Ike has corrected P4 as well.
Oh, right. So it's going to be 1st and 4th once Halaba hits pit lane.
Yeah, I mean, if Malechka wins this race, don't really have to do the math on that. There's no way that Ike can catch him. There's a 14-point separation between them coming into this race. So as long as Malechka wins outright, he's going to win the championship. So that's the last thing that Ike needs.
Who's got the pace to run down the 91? The 93 and 09 are getting very racy back here for 6th place. Here comes the 7 of Austin Espedy, though, and Espedy is going to be Andreas Ike's best friend in the final 21 laps of this one. If the 7 car wins this race and the 76 finishes 4th, I think that gives the 76 the championship, does it not?
Sorry, repeat that sentence again.
If the 91 finishes 2nd and the 76 4th, that should be Ike's, right?
Yeah, that should be. Give me 1 second to confirm that, but yeah, that should be it.
We've also got Andreas, who has the draft of the top 4, so he's going to be actually in this fight here probably within the next 3 laps, not even maybe 2 laps. He's going to be caught up with the top 3, and then it's going to be even more interesting to see if Andreas can work his way ahead of Robert.
Gearing up for the last 20 laps, the last 50 miles of the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. We've been racing for about 2.5 hours. We have only about 14 minutes of racing left to go. Austin Espedy leads the way. Then it's Robert Malechka. Newsom, here she comes in the 63.
Didn't quite get the run that she needed because Malechka is also getting the draft off of the speed, so I kind of cancel it out, but they are getting very close in this top 3.
Oh, look out. working through some lap traffic as well. They did on the back straight. Malechka knows what's at stake here, though, I'm sure. Here he goes.
And really what now it's going to come down to is a matter of where do you want to be on the final lap? Do you want to be the guy in front? You want to be the guy in behind? And getting the run off the corner. We've seen quite a few times where a guy's been able to time it, get the run off of turn 4, make a pass down the front straightaway coming to the line. Doesn't matter, do you believe your car has the ability to make that move work?
Yeah,
or not, and I think I'm coming down to it.
How car dependent is that, Adam? I mean, as we come out of turn 4, there's two ways of looking at it. Coming to the checkers, I think most people would want to be in a defensive position by that point because there's a lot of straightaway, but it's not infinite straightaway as we got the 3 battling for the top spot here. So do you want to be leading or would you rather be second coming out of turn 4 and just hope you get a really good run?
I think you definitely want to have the lead coming out of turn 4. That being said, the way that you set up turn 3 and turn 4 will dictate whether or not you have enough of a gap that you can avoid giving too much draft so that you've got enough of a gap by the time you get to the line. But I'm definitely of the mind that you don't want to be anywhere near third or fourth just because it's so hard to generate a run. So I think you definitely want to be as part of the top 2 to have a shot at it. But hey, we've seen crazier things happen, especially with Alexis running the really top lane. That might end up being something that we see some of these drivers here in the top 4 try in order to make sure that they're in with a shot within the last couple laps.
Man, I'll tell you what, Oster and Joshua Chin, these guys are just nip and tuck. They are making up a little bit of ground on the leaders, but we'll see if they're going to work together well enough to get back in this mix. But they've got 2.5 seconds. They theoretically could get there, so we'll keep an eye on their pace. Andreas Eich is back in the mix for the front here, and man, he could make this very close if he gets on the podium, Finian. And Malechka is going to have some work to do.
I mean, even as they run right now, nothing really changes if he finishes second, third, or fourth. If Malechka wins, it's all said and done. As long as the position he's in, if Malechka finishes second, Ike walks away with the championship.
Wow! Do you see Espedy out of turn 2? He almost put the wall down over there, and he's going to be under fire from Newsom as Malechka tries to break the draft. That was a big miss for Espedy at the exit of turn 2. Watch this. Oh!
Whew. Great car control, though.
Didn't
Car
panic.
just won't turn any more than it was.
Well, that's a 6/10 advantage for Malechka, so that is sizable by this race's standards. So is Espedy struggling now? Does he have anything for the 91? Does Alexis Newsom have anything for the 91? And does the 76 have anything left at all to help defend his own championship, or does he need someone else to do it for him?
I think he may need, again, his best friend, obviously his teammate, is Austin Speedy. And Speedy, you're not just fighting again for the win himself, but also potentially for his teammate to get the championship. So a lot riding on this position. As they run right now, if they, it would be Ike taking the championship by 2 points over Malechka. Sorry, not as they run right now.
Other way around.
No, that's if Malechka finishes second.
Ah, okay. Well, that's close. That's the kind of one where you gotta wait for the admin approval to confirm. The last thing you want to do is announce the champion wrong.
I always like to do a little disclaimer.
I did that in Grid Life in 2020. We had a drop races that changed it, an 8-point swing. Yeah, that was a wild one.
Yeah, well, what I was given is the numbers with the drop weeks and again going off the points. If there's something else I missed to add, oops. but I'm fairly confident. But yeah, obviously we'll wait on the admin approval, but it is extremely close.
Well, looks like Oster and Chin, they're beginning to drop off that lead group just a little bit more than still 2.4. They're not making up as much ground as I thought they were going to. Whoa, that was really tight at the exit of turn 1. No, they almost tangled.
Ooh, man, she almost pin maneuvered him into the outside.
Oh, she's going racing now. Here comes Newsom up to second.
Problem is she's got no slipstream on Malechka, trying to give her some slipstream. Now to the inside of a Speedy. Speedy, is he going to fight this on the outside? He is. Newsom going to slip up the track.
And Ike is in the mix now, top 4 with 13 to go, coming to 13 to go. It's a 4-horse race for first place.
And for Ike trying to get a run, see if he can get around Newsom. If he can get around Newsom, that gives a speedy rear gunner, so he doesn't have to worry about Newsom trying to pass and focus on just attacking much because Newsom's all over the back of the 7.
I'll tell you what, if there's going to be a late race caution, it's going to happen with this front group, Adam.
Yeah, and just as I thought, Alexis has decided it's time to go, and she's really exploring the outside, the super outside line, the 3rd lane. She might even end up getting up towards the 4th lane. There you go. Look at that. Looking for aerodynamic grip in order to make sure that the car rotates. But leaves her a little bit vulnerable to Andreas, who was to lift there out of 4 because of the aero wash. Mega strategy game here.
Down the front straightaway, 12 laps to go. The top 3 all on top of each other, and Ike waiting to pick up the pieces.
A high-speed game at chess at 230 miles an hour. Newsom going to the inside, nowhere to really go. Ike waiting the wings. If Ike can time this right, if Newsom washes up the track and gets a bad run, he can try to slingshot around her, but at the moment, she's looking extremely aggressive.
I'm not sure I want to be in front of Alexis Newsom at this stage of the race. She's got so much gusto behind those moves that I don't want to be on the receiving end of whatever pass she's about to make, because it's about to get very, very wild here at the front.
And all the other drivers can see exactly where she's going, what area of track she's exploring, but there's almost a helplessness to it because you know that you can't really go out that far because you're just ending up adding more distance to your own line. Oh, here we go.
Big
Alexis
dive.
into one.
Wow, that was a big move, but she can't make it stick.
You can see that was from Malechka just putting the car in front of her, and she could not do anything with the wash and had to back out.
This is the pressure cooker right here. Almost 10 to go here.
The pressure cooker indeed. This is like shaking a champagne bottle with the cork still on, and at some point it's going to pop off. 3 and 4. 10 laps to go in the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. 25 miles remain in our 500-mile season finale.
And let's go the big block down the front straightaway. Trying to keep things good.
Oh, look out. Espy's a little high. He manages to hang on to it.
Newsom almost went flying to the wall.
Ike has a great opportunity to steal a spot here. Is he close enough? Not quite. He's going to go for a pass, but can he make it stick on the inside? Newsom's high. Can Ike slide up in front of her? Not quite. They're going to have overlap here. These two have to be very careful that they're not going to give up any more ground to the front. And Newsom, it looks like she's going to back in and maybe swing back and forth here. But they can't afford to race side by side with those two up front.
Oh, but she's going to do it anyway. Newsom to the inside of Ike, side by side for both of them. Newsom's going to slide up the track in behind Ike, and I think it's going to seal the deal, at least for now.
Oster got the right rear tire up into the fence at the exit of turn 1. He's cooking that car. Oh, he's in the wall. There goes Oster.
Oh!
And he's gone.
He ulta for before he can rack and bring the caution. I think didn't want to affect anything.
Well, respectable,
really
but
smart.
Yeah,
really smart. Yeah.
I hate it for Jacob, having such a great run. But that was about to be it. Meanwhile, up front, two race leaders, 8 laps to go. Malechka, Espedy, and Ike, top 3, all on top of each other. Here comes the 7.
Oh!
Wow.
And a Speedy letting his teammate get in front. Interesting call there.
Well, here's the thing. If you've got a guy that's battling for a championship, if he can control his own destiny, put him in the position to do so. Here he comes. I would not have guessed this turn of events. Andreas Ike was a 7th place car at best earlier in the race, but now he's in 2nd and gunning for the lead.
How about this? These guys not just fighting for the Indy 500, fighting for the championship as well. 8 laps to go. It's a 2-horse race.
Whichever one of these drivers wins this race will win the championship as well. You can't ask for bigger stakes. Here comes the number 76 across the line. This time through, Andreas Ike leads, but he's going to need to do it 7 more times if he wants to win this race.
Wow. That time at the line, they were tied down to the 1,000th of a second with Ike just narrowly in front of Malechka.
Both of these drivers will be thinking about where they want to be on the last lap. Do they want to be in 1st or 2nd? They'll also be trying to fill each other out to see exactly how much gap they need in order to make sure if they're 1st or 2nd that they're able to complete an overtake or keep 1st place in order to bring home the win in the championship. This is going to be an amazing finish here with coming to 6 to go.
Clock is ticking. Andreas Ike battling back from a race that he looked like he wouldn't be a factor. Across the line, he leads that time as well. There's a lot of experimenting happening here, Finney, and we saw Andreas Ike beat Malechka to the line just barely the last 2 times. not leading out of turn number 4. So that's something I'm sure Malechka is also keeping track of.
Absolutely, and Malechka now with the run on the straightaway, going to slingshot around Ike. It's a lot of learning, as you mentioned, trying to figure out where you can get the run. If you get the run, can you make it past the driver at the line? Because, that's all you care. Don't care about completing the pass as long as your nose is ahead of the other car. By the time you get to the stripe and it's further down the straightaway, it's not halfway as it is in most tracks, a little bit further, closer to turn 1.
Speedy's sort of falling off the back of this lead pair here, which is serving as a little bit of a rear gunner against Alexis, so that it's really just a 2-horse fight here for the win.
Alexis could really throw a wrench into things. She's fast right now. If she can close the 1 second gap up to Malechka, this could really get interesting if she throws her hat into the ring.
I think Speedy's trying to back him up so that way these guys can get a gap so that no one interferes. But Speedy, unfortunately, Newsom's gotten through. Speedy, I think, is going to try to catch back up and get past Newsom.
And she's already catching. She's gained a 10th since she made that pass. 4 to go. Man, these two are dead even. Their seasons have looked very, very different. Andreas has been more consistent but hasn't had as many streaks of success as Malechka has had. Malechka, it has been hit or miss this season. A lot of hits, a lot of misses. The misses a lot more recently. 2 different drivers, 2 different driving styles, 2 different countries, 2 different teams. Coming down to the final 3 laps here at Indianapolis next time by. After a full season of racing, it's going to be whichever one of these cars finishes in front of the other. Again, Ike at the line. That time he did not beat Malechka to it.
Newsom getting very close.
Yeah, she is there, absolutely there. It's going to be a 3-car battle here with about 2 to go.
Not what Andreas Ike wanted to see. Probably or Malechka either. I think they would much rather deal with it amongst themselves. 2 cars, this is a predictable battle. You throw the 3rd one in there, it's really going to throw a wrench into things, and that's not what the 2 leaders wanted to see in their mirrors.
Yeah, especially with how aggressive Newsom's been, because you can't really predict what she's going to be able to do. So these guys are going to be not only having focus on dealing with themselves, but also with her, because they don't know which way she's going to go. She's been trying to look outside or inside, and you're going to have to block either way. Here we go at the line, 2 laps ago.
5 miles. Adam, this is getting down to it. It's all about positioning yourself at this point.
Absolutely, this is it. This is for all the marbles here. How do you want to position your car? Where do you want to come out of 4? How big of a lead do you want in 3? This is literally what a year's worth of practice and training has gone into.
Here comes Newsom.
I try to pressure Malechka to the bottom. Newsom looking
wow.
on top. Able to get it done.
Unbelievable around the outside in turn 3. Alexis Newsom into 2nd place. Here she comes. If she passes Malechka, Andreas Ike will win the championship. White flag will wave this time. 2.5 miles left at the Brickyard for the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. Malechka and Newsom side by side into turn 1.
Oh, these guys, no one's lifting off at this point in time. Still side by side through turn 2.
Oh, big understeer for Andreas Ike. He's got to keep the foot in it now. The 2 side by side down the back straight. Newsom and Malechka door to door, side pod to side pod. About 1.5 miles left to get back to the stripe. If Andreas Ike finishes 3rd and Malechka 2nd, he wins. If Malechka wins the race, he also wins the championship. Through 3 and 4, 500 miles of racing at Indianapolis is coming down to the final stretch back to the bricks. Here they come out of turn 4. Door sliding side by side pod to side pod. Newsom and Malechka across the line. Malechka wins it by a nose.
18 thousandths of a second at the line.
Incredible.
And Robert Malechka will seal his 2022 championship in the Indy Elite Series. That was phenomenal. Now Andreas Ike comes up just short. Alexis Newsom really threw everything she had into that and spiced up the end there. Outside pass into turn 3, coming back to the white flag. She put her hat in the ring and went for it, but it's Malechka that comes out on top. Unbelievable. Let's go back and have a look at how the last little bit of that race played out. Here's the look down the back straightaway into turn 3, and just Ike, nothing he could do. He was just watching and just a spectator at this point.
Yeah, I think he was trying to see if he can get a run off of those two in front and get a run to the line, but there's just too much wash for him to do anything. And you see Malechka bobbing and weaving to break the draft. I think it was just enough to prevent Newsom from getting a run.
Yeah, and Newsom, she did everything she could here in a side-by-side battle to the stripe. Andreas Eich, in that moment, saw the championship flash away. The margin of victory just a couple of feet after 500 miles of racing. That is pretty unbelievable here. That is your margin of victory. Maybe half a car, a third of a car width, the car length. But Robert Malechka is your winner. Now, he has torn the nose off that thing, doing a burnout, I think. Let's go back and catch that. We were watching the replay.
He doesn't need it anymore, so it's okay.
Celebrating an Indy 500 victory and a championship. There's the nose getting torn off the thing. Man, what a battle between those three at the end. And that is it for the championship season. Here is a look at your race winner and the rest of the order here in the race. Malechka, Newsom, Eich, Chin, and Brian Carey. How about Brian Carey sneaking into top 5 there right at the end? Flynn Lazier, a rock-solid 6th place finish. He snuck in there and got a very great top 10 result after we kind of mentioned he'd have a shot to run that far up front.
I was going to say, I didn't even pay attention to the rest of the order, so it's the first time seeing where everyone else finished in the race, because that battle for the lead was absolutely intense. See, Veda said, looking like one of the potential winners of this race, all the way back down in 9th, just wasn't able to seal the deal at the end. I was starting to look at, Jacob Oster ended up crashing out, so he's going to be all the way back in 22nd. Liam Quinn back in 10th.
Yeah, looking down the rest of the order here, Tony Schowen, Joe Branch, Matt Hollabaugh. We didn't talk a lot about Matt Hollabaugh today. He snuck into 13th place. Quiet afternoon. John Downing in top 15 for the number 21 from Sadie. And then looking down the rest of the order, here's some drivers that did not have the days that they were looking for. Alexander Ball, Oster, that late race crash. Andrew Wood, Adriano Pinheiro, Evan Adams, Jason Brophy, Mitch Welker, Chris Cahill, all drivers that had good runs going and were not able to finish them out. Of course, Matt Houston, Stouffer out really early in the race, first couple laps for the number 13. Well, it's time to talk to a couple of our front runners. Joshua Chin ran 4th place after having a pretty solid day, quietly running in the back half of the top 10, but it was a top 5 at the race end for Josh Chin, the number 93. Joshua, congratulations. Nice top 5 at the end of the day. Snuck in there for that 4th place position. Take us through your race and that run to the end.
Well, I've been up since probably about 3 or 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, so I'm running on empty right now. So I was just kind of trying to stay awake for the first half of the race and get through it. And the caution played out where fuel strategy kind of came into play, and it worked out nicely to just be able to save and hit a number and try and get Andreas some rear gunner protection, and almost had it. Fought with Jacob for a little bit, and I thought him messing up was going to be kind of the end of that, but then they started making moves up for the lead, and Rob was able to get up there and get the lead and get the win. So unfortunately no championship for Andreas, but overall can't complain with how the race went.
A really solid day for you, Josh. Congratulations. A good way to end off the season, and a top 5 in an Indy 500 after almost 3 hours of racing. A really great way to end it out. So congratulations on that, and soak it in, and we'll see you next season here in the Indy Elite Series.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, we're still waiting on a couple other finishers here, and we have confirmed that Robert Malechka is your 2022 Indy Elite Series champion. Tense, nail-biting moments in the closing moments of that race after 500 miles of racing. Andreas Eich, your championship nemesis, was right there in the mix. It turned out that if you didn't win that race, the where Andreas Eich was, he would have won that championship. So the difference between you winning the championship and losing it was 19 thousandths of a second, Robert. First of all, congratulations. That has to be a phenomenal accomplishment, not only to win the race, but to win the championship in such a fascinating fashion. Take us through those last couple laps, looking out the mirrors of your number 91, and tell us what you saw.
Yeah, thanks. You're right on it, Kyle. It was pretty stressful and intense there. I guess SPT was kind of fuel saving. We weren't really sure why he wasn't taking the runs, but as soon as he let Andreas by, I kind of thought it was over until Alexis kind of showed up there at the end. And credit goes to everyone on Team Power Slide. We've been working our ass off with these setups. And I think we're still lacking a little bit. Definitely ways we can gain, but I guess quote unquote a good start to the month of May.
Certainly not a bad way to kick it off. The last couple of rounds, Sans Long Beach had kind of a downward spiral for a couple rounds, a couple crashes and things, getting caught up in other people's messes. But to turn it around here at the end, coming into this weekend, I'm sure you had to feel pretty confident about your speed. But I want to know more about, how much were you racing that 76? Because for most of the race, Andreas looked like he had a 7th or 8th place car. But then all of a sudden, here he is in your mirror with 15 laps to go. So were you racing him the whole race, kind of keeping tabs on him, or were you more concerned about just running up front and putting yourself in position?
Yeah, Adam Blocker and Hugo Olsen were helping us a ton there, and I was asking, I don't know, roughly every 45 to 50 laps kind of what the point situation was, and I knew once he got, within 2 to 3 spots of me, I knew it was really close, if not, it was in favor of him, so yeah, and then, we both went long there. I was kind of surprised by everyone hitting right on lap or with 29 to go, because I thought going long was the play, and it worked out great for both Andreas. And while I talk about Andreas, he's a great driver. He's always clean. He's probably the nicest guy that I've ever met. So obviously congrats to him on a great run there, and it was a great battle with him to the end.
Well, champion will be listed next to your name for 2022 in the IndyCar Oval Elite Series, as well as the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317 champion for 2022. So congratulations, enjoy it, soak it in, and we'll see you next season.
Yep, thank you guys. Let's see if we can go back-to-back, hopefully.
Step 1, win championship number 1, and here it is. We'll see. Look forward to you next round. Good luck.
Yep, thank you, Kyle.
Moving on now to a second-place finisher, Alexis Newsom, who really mixed things up there at the end of the number 63. Alexis, it looked like it was going to be a 2-horse race for first place between the 76 and 91. And then around the outside, here comes Alexis into second place and then almost stole a victory from Alechka. Take us through those last couple laps.
I did think I was out of it for a while. When I got stuck behind those two and then accidentally let Ike by, I thought I was pretty much done. Then SPT got the wall a little and I was able to get around him pretty quick. And then I just pushed as hard as I could. Can't really feel my hands or anything.
Well, that was a lot of hard work going into those last couple of laps, I'm sure, coming to the stripe, just hoping you had a couple more horsepower. But that was a phenomenal run, Alexis. But summarize your season for me, because it was a very successful one for you, and certainly 19 thousandths of a second shy from winning the Indy 500 has to leave you pretty confident for next season as well.
Oh, of course. And thanks to Trino and everybody at i5G for helping me. Well, for building this setup. I didn't really contribute that much. But, yeah. With them now, I feel pretty confident about the cars that are under me. I felt confident before, but especially here, it's, they know this track inside and out. They've really helped that. My season hasn't really gone as good as I hoped. Wrecked out of the last few. But this is a pretty good redemption. I'm happy with it.
I'd say so, Alexis. Congratulations. Second place in the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. Look forward to seeing you around next season with Team i5G. Best of luck to you next season, and thanks for chatting.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's going to do it for the interviews tonight. Of course, Andreas Seik, pretty shy. We don't see him a lot here in the interview booth, guys, but what a phenomenal race. 500 miles, only 2 cautions to speak of, and some great racing that ended with a battle to the win. 0.02 of a second was the margin. Finian, your final thoughts on this race and the season?
Yeah, this is a fantastic race. These guys put on an absolute show. Very clean racing. Very few. I don't think we actually even saw any car-to-car wrecks.
No, we didn't.
We saw some car-to-car contact here and there, but very minor in comparison to some other years and a lot of other Indianapolis races I've seen with Indy cars. So very clean. Fantastic job by everyone out there. Some really hard racing. Very clean racing. Put on a great show. This season was absolutely phenomenal to watch. Very similar in the vein of Kraus versus Blocker. I would say this battle was actually a little bit better because it literally came down to the last lap between these two. And as Adam mentioned before, I'm sure for Ike, he's going to be looking at it saying, man, if I got one more position here or there, because he lost this championship by 2 points. So he's going to be looking, seeing where he could have done better, and he's probably going to be questioning himself. But he did a fantastic job this season. He got some great finishes here and there. Ended up getting a win after a very long time, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to beat Launch Club.
Adam, briefly, your final thoughts on this race and the season as a whole. Certainly a successful one all around.
Man, it's hard not to be entertained after a race like that, where the championship fight comes down to the last lap, and you've got a battle for the win where the margin of victory is less than 0.02 of a second. Absolutely phenomenal race. Super happy to see top IndyCar drivers competing at a high level across really difficult conditions. So amazing job by everyone who competed today. And as far as the season, I mean, what more can you say about Indy Elite? It's just so elite. It never fails to disappoint.
It never disappoints. On SimTV, this is one of our favorite series. Big congratulations to Robert Malechka. There will be more in the future. Keep an eye on our Discord. Link is in the description to see when the season starts up next. But for tonight, that's it. I'm Kyle Heyer with Finian DeCuna and Adam Crane. That's the 2022 IndyCar Oval Elite Series season and the Indy 500 presented by Catalyst 317. Malechka wins the race and the championship. We'll see you next season.